For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of intense and epic racing action in the one and only SimRacing International GT3 Championship, as proudly brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing, and proudly powered by both Trophy.ai and also SimCoach. Season 10 continues to roar on, and with 3 rounds remaining, we are heading towards the finish line of the season. But to get to that finish line, we have to see our drivers take on 3 absolutely brilliant circuits to wrap up their championship, and the first of which is none other than the Sebring International Raceway. Located in the US state of Florida, this is one of the oldest circuits of the country, indeed one of the oldest circuits in the world, having spanned the best part of 70 years of motorsport in history. What started off as an Army Air Force base known as the Hendricks Army Airfield all the way back in the 1940s, used for the purposes of training pilots in preparation for the Second World War. Well, the military aircraft may have moved on since then, but the tarmac and the concrete slabs that make up the runways have not. Still the site of a commercial runway today, it is a circuit that each year brings many a spectator from the motorsporting world to its tarmac, asphalt and concrete for the spectacle of multiple events, perhaps none more so than the 12 Hours of Sebring. Because at its core is a rough and rugged competitive circuit whereby drivers need to compete with an endurance challenge that's put ahead of them, and that is thus that half the circuit is made up of asphalt, smooth, modern, as easy it comes. Meanwhile, certain sections, particularly the back section of the circuit, is all old concrete slabs in reference to the circuit's origins and airfield, and indeed the bumpiness of that part of the road compared to the smoothness of other parts is something you need to set the car up for. Get it right and you may find yourself gradually careening towards victory. Get it wrong, however, and you may find the suspension of the car takes too much of a battering, and indeed the driver as well, and the car may just not be able to hold up over the distance, and it could all go wrong just before the finish line. And that's what we're here to find out today, because in Season 10 we have had plenty of great stories so far this season, from our season opener all the way out to this point. And right now in Split B, which you're tuning into today, we've got plenty of questions to answer. But before we get to those questions and the potential answers, where are my manners? Please excuse me, because I have not introduced myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX121 or Britain the Split, depending on what media you follow me on, and I shall be bringing you all your racing action today as you tune in live from circuit side here to the Split B broadcast in your Pro and Evo classes. Brought to you, of course, only on the YouTube channel of SimRacing International. If you go to YouTube, you can search for SimRacing International or SRI. And that's where you can be tuning in and catching all the racing as it unfolds over the entirety of the season. Speaking of which, you can be joining the likes of Andy Chell, who says hello in the YouTube chat. And I'm doing very well, thank you, Andy. How about yourself? I hope you're doing well, my friend. And all set for some brilliant racing today. Indeed, if you are tuning in right now, don't be shy. Feel free to say hi and let us know how you're doing and who you're here to cheer on today. Of course, this is one of two broadcasts going on in parallel, with the other one being for the Elite and Premier classes, and that being in the very capable hands, as always, of long-time broadcasters and commentators at SimRacing International of Joe Glass and Dara Thacker. So therefore, if you feel inclined, you can have both broadcasts on simultaneously, and you can catch the racing from the best part of 120 drivers over the course of two splits. But here today, we've had 44 drivers make the journey in Split B, and with certainty, we look forward to seeing how they get on, as the qualifying session is currently going on in the background, and therefore, let's use this as an opportunity to tell you the story coming into this round, and particularly give you a recap of what happened at the Circuit of the Americas last time out. Because as we make our way then to the schedule, as we can see on the 6th of November, it was the Texas two-step that unfolded at the Circuit of the Americas Grand Prix circuit. And for round number 7, well, the Pro class and the Evo class both had some intriguing stories. In Pro, we saw Stephen Codman once again make his way onto the podium. However, he was not able to take victory. The victory in the end went to first-time winner for the season of Vincent Lodder for SimRacing Team Lowlands, who in the end got it all done on strategy and outright pace and led home a 1-2 alongside teammate Tim Vandenham. And Stephen Codman, meanwhile, had to sit there with jaw aghast at the fact that he was not able to find a way to get ahead of the two Dutchmen. But Codman, of course, your championship leader. We'll see how that affects his championship lead very shortly, but it really was the story of the two Dutchmen there in the Pro class. Meanwhile, in the Evo class, it was all war out on circuit, and we saw the lead change hands more time than we have in any other round this season, with Stuart Rice setting the initial momentum, and to an unfortunate incident between himself and Rob Gregg saw both drivers having to try and lick their wounds. But meanwhile, there was Jan Nagy who took the lead for a brief moment, only to find out in the strategic stakes there would be a Dutchman who'd take it off of him, and he'll go from the Swede to the Dutchman of none other than Denny Ploger, who would bring home his first win of the season and therefore score high. But where exactly was Steve Rubino, many would wonder, the championship leader? Well, he was there on the grid as well. However, it was a 4th place finish at the Circuit of the Americas that really set the trend. That is, Rubino's pace in the early portion of the season has been caught up to, and right now it's about survival at the very top. And well, for Steve Rubino, if it could be survival of the fittest, he may just get that championship crown. And the same, in a way, could be said of Stephen Codman in the Pro class, but more on that very shortly. Because today is the 13th of November, and it's here for the Sebring International Circuit, after which we will complete our American header at the Road America Circuit in a week's time, the 20th of November, in the picturesque Countryside Classic Circuit in the US state of Wisconsin, and then we'll make our way all the way across the Pacific Ocean for the Suzuka International Racing Course Grand Prix Circuit, the legendary Figure of 8 Circuit, on the 27th of November. That is where we'll be bringing the curtain down. But as we come down to our standings then after 7 rounds, starting with the top 12 in the Pro Drivers' Championship. And as we can see, Stephen Codman leads with 540 points for Axis in Sport Blue, with a 3rd place there added to a previous 3rd place, and right now he has 2 of each podium position, with 2 thirds, 2 seconds, and 2 firsts, and a 4th place as well. He truly has been the definition of Mr. Consistent this season, and with a gap now of 162 points, he'll be feeling very confident that he can gradually close out this championship, and he may even be able to put one hand on the title as of the conclusion of today. Nick Stubbe, meanwhile, well, what a contrasting set of fortunes. Whereas Codman was able to take it quite easy to 3rd place, the Vulcan Fasters at Glass Tip Racing Dry had a non-finish after a horrendous incident between himself, Adam Baker, and Menno Bloem, which in the end saw both Stubbe and Bloem have to tow to the pits, and Stubbe's car was irreparable over the remainder of the race, and the Mercedes driver there absolutely fuming at what was looking to be a strong showing despite a difficult qualifying session. So therefore, right now, 378 points, he's fallen back into the clutches of the rest of the top 12, because Menno Bloem sits only 48 points behind for SimRacing Team Lowlands, with his non-finish there as well, scuppering his ability to move into 2nd. But hot on his heels is Jared Love with 5th place finish at DC Motorsport, and once again the team having contrasting fortunes, where it all went right for Love, but it all went wrong for his teammate Peter Duke, who's all the way down in 9th. From the Scotsman, it's then the Briton of LS Racing's Adam Baker, with that 6th place finish there, moving on to 320 points, but only 2 behind him, and only ahead of Robin Milton based on result countback, is the SimRacing Team Lowlands 1 driver Vincent Lodder, who took his 3rd podium of the season, and that win, of course, at the Circuit of the Americas, and then with Robin Milton just behind on result countback, back, yet to score a win. That's the distance. Well, the Phoenix Racing Green driver right now will be looking to close that distance down today, and he'll be hoping he can get right back into that top 5, because right now it's only 60 points separating our 6 drivers from 2nd through to 7th, and Codman seems to be the unassailable one at the very top. David Hutchison then marks the 3rd portion of the field for Axis SimSport Blue, only 26 points ahead of Peter Duke, with the DC Motorsport driver another non-finish. Right now the championship definitely is unfolding not the way he's wanted it to, and Tim Vandenham completes your top 10 there with his first podium of the season, catapulting him into 10th place for SimRacing Team Lowlands. Outside the top 10 by only 10 points is Krista Starswell for Simcast Racing Team UK, and Robin Noel Brown rounds off the standings there in the top 12 for GPX SimSport Xenon. We'll then come to the Evo class, and where we do have a runaway leader in the Pro class, we did have a runaway leader in the Evo class. Is he still running away? Some would say yes, some would say potentially not. What we know is he's not called the Stig, he is Steve Rubino, and right now leading by 90 points. A gap is gradually coming down, with 7th and a 4th being his order coming into this round, and right now all those podiums he was securing earlier in the season, it does look as though the American driver on home soil is not enjoying a run of results that matched up with the first half of the season. But that's not because he's not trying, he's giving it everything, but it is because his rivals have caught up to him over the season. They've all stepped up to the plate, whereas Rubino, meanwhile, continues to step up, but they are stepping up quicker. And leading the way is Jan Nuggi for iRacing, the Swede there with 2 back-to-back second place finishes, and right now on an unstoppable run of podiums, only interrupted by the rounds 1 and 2. Well, right now on 462 points, he'll be feeling as though he's the number 1 contender to close down Rubino. But there's a problem. He has a very fast-charging Dutchman coming up behind him, and the MJK Sim Racing driver Denny Ploger, with that win, now moves into 3rd on 422 points, 40 behind. But only behind him, based on result countback, given the fact his highest finish has been a 3rd, is Moonshiners Racing Club's Rob Gregg, who would also fancy his chances to get right into the hunt there ahead of Stuart Rice, who is a further 22 points behind. But understandably, that 3rd place that Stuart Rice was able to notch last time out at the Circuit of the Americas, he will feel as though that should have been a win. And if he had been able to pick up that win, he would be right behind Jan Nuggi by the best part of only 10 points, and it could be a very different complexion. And the Phoenix Racing Red driver, furious at that, who's got to tunnel that anger into the race today, and I hope he's able to get back on the podium, if not the win as well. Andy Chelt on 366 points, never rule him out, because he's bringing the rest of the field with him for Quatermass Motorsport, because behind him by only 12 points is Callum Morrow, the man who took the surprise victory in round number 6, and suddenly a 9th place finish last time out. The LS Racing driver seems to have seesawed his way back down the order again, and he'll be hoping for a bit of a revival. If not, Gareth Newton will close up to him, who is currently 70 points behind for GPX SimSport Vertex, with Dave Collier as well for DC Motorsport there, having a non-finish last time out, much like his teammate Peter Duke in the Pro class, and DC Motorsport really having a difficult day at the office. Paul Maffey sits in 10th for Phoenix Racing Red, only behind based on result countback. Now, 11th place, 8 points behind him, is none other than the privateer of Martin Brandon, when Matt stays for Flatline Racing, holding on in there in 12th place at 220 points. But then what about the Teams Championship, I hear you ask? When the Teams Championship, what we can see is Vulcan Motorsports Gold. They lead, and how this Teams Championship has been shuffled. Not necessarily at the very top. That lead for Vulcan Motorsports has now increased to the best part of approximately 152 points over Axis SimSport Blue. And right now, the bigger question you may wish to ask is what's going to happen to second? Because our leaders right now, they could put one hand on the title come the end of today if they get a huge score and everybody else struggles to do so. Because it was mixed scores for Axis SimSport Blue at the Circuit of the Americas, and that's enabled Phoenix Racing Blue to suddenly move all the way from 5th to 3rd as their results are a lot stronger. Phoenix Racing Red, by contrast, had a very difficult day at the office. They've fallen back to 4th, and behind them is the combination of Matt Hoyland, Nick Stubbe, Luke Bailey and Owen Seward. That, of course, is Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tip Racing, who have moved from 6th to 5th, and they are now only 44 points behind 4th place. But from their points of 852, you come to the 816 of SimCoach, who continue to very gradually rise the way up through the ranks, and maybe you may be thinking, well, they did this back in Season 9, and you would be spot on. SimCoach have very gradually moved up into the top 10, and now they're into 6th, and on 816 points, they're only 2 ahead of MJK Sim Racing, but you would imagine they will be feeling confident they may be able to sneak into the top 5 by the end of this round, and perhaps even change for a top 3 come the end of the season. Vulcan Motorsports Red, meanwhile, they sit in 8th. They've had a big fall from grace recently, falling all the way down from 4th to 8th. It was a nightmare round last time out for them, and they're only 22 points ahead of Moonshiners Racing Club, who continue to stay static in place, albeit they are gradually sliding backwards now to try and stay into the top 10, with DC Motorsport there, the gateway into the top 10 for many a team outside it on 758 points, and in 11th place, off camera, what we can see it is none other than GPX SimSport Vertex, who on 744 points. They had a difficult round, and therefore they will be looking to bounce back. But when you do consider that 10th through to 14th are separated by only 74 points, this fight for a spot inside the top 10 is going to only get tighter and tighter as we head towards that conclusion at Suzuka. So that's a recap of the story coming into this round, so let's talk a little bit about our circuit for today. There is, of course, the international layout, or the full layout, of Sebring International Raceway, located near the city of Sebring in the Highlands County of the US state of Florida, 3.74 miles in length or 6.0 kilometers, depending on your preference of units, but one thing that doesn't change is the number of corners, 17 in total, and many of them household names, not just at a domestic level, but around the world, with the circuit playing host to domestic, national and international racing year in, year out. But the main theme of this circuit, of course, is that it's a very flat circuit, with its origins being traced back to an airfield, and indeed a bit synonymous with a good number of circuits in the United Kingdom, such as Silverstone. But with the lack of elevation change then, what it has as a return asset is the ability to confound drivers with its road surface changes, but also its corner variety, where it being Jean de Bien at turn number 1, the fast sweeping left-hander, into the very tight complex of turns 3 through to 5, which essentially could be earmarked as hairpin bends to a degree, for our drivers make the way for the sweeper at turn number 6 at Big Bend, and all the way up into the very tight hairpin at turn number 7. Then they head up towards Cunningham, a sharp right-hand 90-degree corner at turn number 10, before flat out through Collier and into Tower they'll go, and it's a run all the way down the back section of the circuit and onto the rough concrete at Bishop at turn number 14. But should they get it right, coming through the Le Mans complex to turns 15 and 16, then power the way onto the Allman Straight, and as they head into Sunset Bend, named aptly so because essentially when the sun is setting you're driving into the sunset, and therefore you'll be blinded on corner entry, while drivers will need to make their way through turn number 17 and get it absolutely right in order to roar the way onto another lap or come away victorious come that checkered flag. But as we get set then, ladies and gentlemen, that's enough about the rules, the racing, and the story in between. Now we're going to come back to live racing here at Circuit Side, and well, of course, we are in the midst of qualifying, and we haven't got long left. So maybe you may be wondering, where exactly do we stand in qualifying? And the answer is, well, we've still got a lot of shuffling to go. But as we do say hello to a few more of you there in the YouTube chat, we do have our regular request there from none other than Stephen Wilkinson, of course, team principal at the Simcast Racing Team at UK outfit. Lovely gentleman off the circuit. I've had the pleasure of conversing with him a few times, and I can tell you right, he's an absolute star, and don't be shy, feel free to give him all your best wishes, ladies and gentlemen. But he has asked for live timings, and you can stay in track with the live timings using the link that we just posted in the YouTube chat there, and hopefully it does work. And that's if you want a little bit more data with regards to the relative sector times of each and every car, also pit stop times and some other information there, but I will keep you abreast of things as best as we can, so that may be data overload for those of you tuned in right now who just want this on a singular TV screen. We also do say hello there to none other than Nikos Kapas, who's looking forward to the race and also to tuning in, and we're glad to have you with us, Nikos, and I hope you're doing well. And also we do say hello to Thomas Pugh there, who's wishing the best of luck to the Axis Simsport teams tonight. But in terms of where they are at the moment, well, Stephen Codman's parked up in the pit lane, but that's a park up with confidence there because of the fact he's currently sitting on provisional pole overall and in the pro class. He has been on pole for some time in the fact that he did set that 59.48 roughly about 26 minutes into his qualifying session. It's an hour in length. Of course, a very different qualifying session for this season. And the man who's trying to chase him most closely at the moment is Robin Milton, the Acura NSX Evo 22 driver right now. He's only half a tenth off, but it's been very interesting to see how Codman has stayed one step ahead in this qualifying session thus far, and everybody else has been jostling for what is second through to sixth place. Well, at one point it was Mark Johnson who was the closest, then it was none other than Tim Vandenham, now it's Robin Milton, it was also Nick Stubbe at one point, and Peter Duke as well for a brief moment was in second, and it shows that all finding some time out there in this circuit is definitely evolving. But I get the feeling that Steve Rubino may have been listening into what we were saying about his championship campaign earlier on, because he's currently the fastest of our Evo drivers, and my good lord, he's in 7th provisionally overall at the moment. That is an incredible lap from Steve Rubino at 59.67, and well, to put that in perspective, the next fastest provisional lap currently from the Evo class is from Jan Naki all the way down in 22nd place, and he is 6 tenths slower. Now, there also is a bit of a big compliment here to the running order of the grid in the fact that we do have only 6 tenths separating the best part of 16 cars. But Steve Rubino right now on home soil, well, I get the feeling he may have come away from the US state of Texas feeling very disappointed in how that race went. I think he's avowed to himself, I'm not going to let them beat me twice, and that's why right now he is absolutely all the way out there for Hobo Racing, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is trying to put a statement into the rest of the Evo field, which if he brings this together tonight, he will be reasserting his championship lead, and then it does mean at Road America, all he needs to do is get a decent result. He doesn't need to dominate at Road America, he'll need everybody else to try and go for gold, whereas all he needs to do, theoretically, is perhaps go for third or fourth, and he will be your champion elect with a round to spare, and I think that may be his target, and I think that'll be the same target for Stephen Codman effectively, not to necessarily win today, but if he can, of course, he will put himself in the best possible position to wrap things up going into Road America. But if you're a championship leader, you've got a lot of points in hand, you want to try and get the job done before you head to the finale, because of course the longer you leave the door open, the more likely somebody's going to put their toe in it and eventually force the door wide open. But from Steve Rubino, we do come to Jan Nagy, the iRacing McLaren driver, and right now he is the second fastest of the Evo drivers, but he's got a long way to go to Rubino's lap, and it is looking as though the Evo drivers are very gradually bringing themselves forward as Denny Ploger makes his way out there in the lime green fluorescent Porsche 992 machine. And well, number 12 driver here, I think he said to himself, right, I've got 10 minutes, I need to try and find a bit more time. If anything, I need to get ahead of Jan Nagy. And do keep in mind, of course, ladies and gentlemen, the prizes for this season, not necessarily any monetary prizes for our drivers, but it is a trophy, and there are going to be trophies for the top 10 finishers in both of our classes, I do believe, and also trophies for our top 10 teams coming into the season. And well, whilst other series may give away monetary prizes, we like to think here at SimRacing International that you want something to remember, and well, money, well, it's quickly spent, but a trophy is eternal, it must be said, and that's why the biggest motivators to our drivers week in, week out is the hunt for that trophy they can put on their mantle shelf and reflect strongly on the fact they had an absolutely brilliant season. Much like when you first joined the iRacing Simulator, for those who are quite veterans of the iRacing Simulator, you may remember your first race win and the fact that iRacing actually sent you a little certificate to say you picked up your first win. And well, I do remember my first ever win was my second ever race on iRacing in the MX5 Rookie Series, and when I did see that certificate come on through, I'm not going to lie, I did actually print it off for a time and actually pinned it to what is one of those pin boards. I can't remember the proper name, but you know what I'm referring to, where you put a little safety pin through the top, well, not a safety pin, but you put a little pin through the top of a piece of paper and it hooks it to the cork board. That's the word I'm looking for there. Answered my own question, and well, I used to have that up on the wall for some time before, unfortunately, well, the cork board had to be removed. But as Denny Ploger makes his way onwards right now, he'll be warming himself up, and well, we're going to warm ourselves up as well with an on-board lap with one of our drivers, and we're going to have the pleasure today of riding on board with Menno Bloem shortly in the Ferrari 296 GT3 for SimRacing Team Lowlands, as our number 9 driver heads on for he's currently in 13th place. I think he fancies a bit more time out there. Let's go around then for a flying lap of the Sebring International Raceway. So down the start for this straight he goes and bring the car immediately over to the right hand side and get ready for Jen to be in corner, bouncing around as he makes his way to turn number 1, down with the brakes, drop a couple of gears to third and chuck the car in, and make his way through nice and tight to wall, flat out now as he powers his way up through the Kinker 2 and in towards 3, straight lines the car and onto the brakes at 100 metres, we'll call it apex, trail braking nicely into second gear now, from left into right, then back into another left-hander. You've got to balance the car here, pick the right line, takes a lot of apex curb there, that rotates the car, but it runs the risk, causing the rear to come around aggressively, but not so for Bloem as he makes his way now through Big Bend and takes a brief breather. But looking to his left then for the hairpin at turn number 7. He'll look to the cones and he'll brake 150 metres a quarter apex down to first gear, nice and tight, and now flat out here, straight line the 2 kinks on the exit, and as he makes his way now up through Fangio, it's going to be flat out here through turns 8 and 9, the right into left, and then very shortly he'll be onto the brakes for Cunningham. Braking zone on the left, his marker will be at the 100 metre board, and as he heads onto the anchors, down to second gear, through the right, and now through the quick fire of Collier, and here it's all about balancing the car as he does so quite nicely, albeit a bit of a lift there. I wonder if Bloem perhaps made a bit of a mistake and the car was coming loose, but onto the brakes he goes at Tower, no mistake there whatsoever, and now coming in towards Bishop Bend, and as he does so, building up the gears, once again up into 4th, and then shortly to 5th. He's going to go all the way through left-hander here and get ready to go hard onto the brakes, trailing down the gearbox now, down to 3rd gear into turn number 15. Right into left he goes now into Le Mans, and here using all the runoff area they're legally allowed to, as he comes through in 2nd gear, immediately on the throttle as he clears the apex, and now has he got it right? Has he nailed the throttle in the right time? We're about to see, because he heads all the way out the Auburn straight and gets ready for Sunset Bend. And goodness me, that sun is gradually setting. They'll be blind when they're racing through it midway through the race. And as he gets ready to the brakes, you can see the glare on the road, braking at about 200 meters of quarter apex. But most importantly, of course, the fact that run into the corner, it is a long run, nails it, runs very close to the exit wall. And for Menno Bloem, is it a lap to be proud of? Is it a lap he's improved on? He was 14th coming onto this qualifying lap. He returns to 13th, a 59.756. It's a good lap there for Bloem. And right now, only 3 attempts, if that, separates your top 13 on this grid. It is incredibly close here at Sebring. And, well, understandably, right now, everybody's going for the ultimate accolade, which is to take pole position. And this is the closest we've seen it in qualifying this season. We've seen a lot of close fights for the front row of the grid, or the first couple of rows of the grid, but we have not this season seen where it's effectively 15 drivers separated by half a second. It is absolutely sensational, and that's overall, but predominantly in the Premier class. Not in the Premier class, in the Pro class I should say, excluding the outlier of our Evo driver there, of Steve Rubino. But what about our Evo drivers, I hear you ask? Let's talk a little bit about them. Well, as we do have our DC Motorsport machine at Royce Wound Pass, we look to one of your lower place drivers at the moment. 43rd of our 44 drivers is David Pilcher for the Simcast Racing Team UK outfit. And well, he's here again, looking to give it his all today. It's great to see David back out there, I must admit, in the fact that I'm not allowed to have favourites, of course, ladies and gents, but I always do cheer on the little guys out there who are week in and week out trying to give it their all and try to find a little bit more pace and just gradually getting some experience behind the helm of the wheel. And Pilcher's been one of those for the Simcast team, as he does have a bit of a side-by-side here with Stuart Rice. I think they realise then they need to work around each other, and Rice, I think, very eager to come through because Rice is a faster driver based on qualified time, and Pilcher taps him on the rear. Oh, goodness me, that's not the way they wanted it to go. And I think Rice on that offline for turns 3, 4 and 5, well, he may have been off race line, therefore lost a bit of speed, and Pilcher then had more speed, but unfortunately has made that contact, and I think there might be some words between the two of them by the end of qualifying before they go into the race. And Pilcher right now finds himself in a bit of an awkward position, as he does have the DC Motorsport car coming up behind him, but he does recognise it and moves aside. But have we got any surprises in terms of drivers further down the order? Well, Robert Norton here coming in 11th for your Evo drivers. He'll be hoping for a bit more, as he has got the Moonshiners Racing Club Aston Martin right behind him, and that is the car of none other than Rob Gregg hugging his backside as they head in towards Le Mans. Nick Stubbe now goes the fastest overall. Peter Duke went up there for a brief moment, but Stubbe has moved the boundary now to a 59.358. 8 tenths faster, in fact not 8 tenths faster, 800ths faster, let me correct myself, and he's moving his way forward. As we do say hello there to Scruffy Badgerlord, who unfortunately says, I give up with quality today, and something's not quite working out for you, good sir. Can completely understand. Well, perhaps it's time to take a bit of a breather, regroup, and of course, in the race. Oh my goodness, well that's going to be a regroup there for Rob Gregg as he makes his way on the exit of Sunset. That's a knock to the wall, and that's going to be damaged front left suspension there. You can see the car crawling as he tries to get it to a halt. So Rob Gregg, with all that dirty air from the car in front of him, understeered out wide, and in the end, a bit too much enthusiasm and zealotry caused him to fall foul of what was a very firm wall. But meanwhile, Ian Fraser makes his way around here for Moonshiners Racing Club. And as he does so, looking to try and move forward, but coming back to the fault of pro drivers are out of position. Well, Fraser is one of them, most definitely. Victor Van Ziest as well, all the way down in 36th place overall, our lowest positioned pro driver at this time. And what about the Evo class? Are there any surprises there? Well, of course, the big one is the fact that right now Steve Rubino is the only Evo inside the top 10. And then you have Jan Nuggies, your second place man, all the way down in 25th. But talking about where they are in relation to each other, well, it's Nagy, then Ploger for second and third. But then you have got Rob Gregg, Andy Chell, Stuart Rice. You've got the usual crew. Callum Morrow's a bit closer today compared to Rice, as Matt Stace surprises everybody with a monster lap there for Flatline Racing. Moves up onto a 201.024. That puts him into 6th place in Evo. That's a good lap there for the Mercedes driver. I think he'll be very pleased with that because he has been getting quicker as the season goes on. He was in the first couple of rounds that he participated in, normally qualifying just outside the top 10 of Evo. We have, of course, had a few drivers not appear on the grid over the last couple of rounds, but to be fair, we have got a very healthy Evo class of the best part of 17 competitors here and a very healthy pro class of 27 competitors, and well, a good number of these names were faster than Stace earlier on in the season, and right now, well, you've got to imagine the 99 driver's going to be so pleased with that. He's going to miss his braking zone there into the hairpin. He decides to go straight on, but I think that's by design there, as we on Matthew Hunter and switch from the BMW M4 Evo to the Aston Martin V8 Vantage Evo. well, we were wondering whether the Aston Martin switch was going to work out for him, and so far, this being his second round, it does seem as though it hasn't really moved him forward as such, but then again, he could be getting to terms with a car that he's gradually learning here, and it may suit his driving style a bit more, but he may be still needing to find the pace and understanding exactly where the Aston Martin has its strengths and its weaknesses. Remembering, of course, this is a car powered by a V8 Mercedes engine with a twin turbo system bolted onto it, and therefore this car's strengths and weaknesses, well, its strength is in the fact that for a front engine rear wheel drive car, it actually does have quite a bit of cornering potential, and also it's quite punchy towards the top end of each gear. The downside, however, is it's not the fastest on the straight, and also because of the reliance on the turbo, it does suffer in the lower RPM bands in each gear, and that means you really do need to drive this car quite high in the engine rev ranges, and in turn that means fuel efficiency can be a little bit challenging in the Aston Martin. However, it's a car that's actually quite nice on its tyres, so it does have some strengths, it does have some weaknesses, and Hunter's going to have to figure those out, and how he can utilise them best. And several drivers are going to have to figure that out, as meanwhile, well, right now, Nick Stubbe thinks he's figured it out for overall and pro pole position, because we do have the Vulcan fastest driver in the pit lane with that 59.358 still standing. Meanwhile, Peter Duke for DC Motors, well, he's got this lap plus one more. Remembering, of course, they do have overtime available to them when the clock strikes an hour complete. They must finish the lap they are currently on, and that's it. So Peter Duke right now will fancy his chances here, but he's going to need to summon one last gasp. And right now, if any driver needs a big result today, regardless of where they sit in the championship, Peter Duke is that one driver. He has had misfortune strike him time and time again. And I do remember the first time I commentated on this series back in Season 8, Peter Duke found himself right in the mix of a number of contentious incidents. Not all of them his fault, to be fair, and well, he was a very quick driver, but things didn't quite click in his championship battle versus Ricardo Luis Pereira. Took a season out and back for this season, and right now you would imagine that he's all fired up once again, but he's again been hit with the worries and woes of incidents that are not necessarily been his fault. As he heads on down, Denny Ploger there improves. Ploger improves to what is a 2-minute 0.353. That does move a little bit closer there to young Nuggy, but not enough to get ahead of him in second place in the Evo class. And well, right now, Peter Duke's going to be one of the very last drivers to go on to a qualifying lap here. And he's going to give it all he can, as we say hello to F1 Will there, who's cheering on Nick Stubbe. Very happy to see him at the top. But Duke right now seems to be the only man who might be able to beat him as the checker flag comes out here on qualifying. And now we have to wait to see who is going to be on that pole position. Further down the order as well, we've got Split Track Esports' Fotis Katios, who briefly disappears, then rematerialises from the ether. He's all the way down in 24th place, or 23rd in pro, so that's a surprise. We'd normally expect him to be towards the bottom end of the top 20, if not inside the top 15. So he's had a bit of a difficult qualifying session. Jamie Bardwell's going to squeeze ahead of it at this rate, as Bardwell makes his way on around. But this circuit is falling very quiet very quickly here, and well, that's a sign of potentially the fact that most of our drivers think they got the job done. Well, there's no changes really in the Evo class beyond Ploger getting close to Nagy. Greg still full, but Shell and Stacey are top 6, with Rice just behind in 7th. And then Callum Morritt, Dave Collier and James Fraser completed the Evo top 10. And they are mostly all together on this grid, with one or two pros split in the field. But Katios, meanwhile, is getting closer towards the end of the lap, making his way down the Auburn Straight, as we're looking at Jamie Bardwell here. And he's got behind him none other than Ross Young. Well, in fact, that's not Ross Young. Ross Young is in front of him. We see the BMW driver here. Behind him is the car of Christopher Starsmore, who's in 11th place at the moment overall, 10th in the pro class, so he's going to be quite happy. In terms of Katios, he has crossed the line off camera, and I can tell you that right now he has not improved, as meanwhile that's a mistake there from Starsmore in the rear of the pitch. He ran out wide coming through Le Mans, so therefore he's invalidated his lap, so he decides to park up and tow to the pits. But here comes our BMW driver of Young, making his way on around, and as he does so, that lovely camera angle there giving you a sense of the width of the circuit and how small these cars are in comparison, and he crosses the line. He was 30th. He stays 30th. Meanwhile, Jamie Bardwell crossed the line. He doesn't improve either. And what about Liam Fraser then, who's currently 14th? He's going to be the last try to do a qualifying lap here today at Sebring. Drifts slightly sideways. Car wobbling left and right. And for Liam Fraser, well, that's oversteer there in spades. And that means he's not going to improve surely there. And he will stay 14th. But look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Half a second separates the top 15. It is the closest qualifying order we have seen this season. The top 26 separated by a second. You couldn't ask for closer, but that is qualifying, and what a session it has been. It has been full of ups and downs for drivers, but in the Pro class, Nick Stubbe has put himself on pole for the first time this season, and it's a Mercedes 1-2 with Peter Duke alongside for DC Motorsport, and Stephen Codman is right behind with good old friend and classic championship rival Robin Milton starting in 4th. Meanwhile, Steve Rubino, he will be starting 6th in the end. He was only, my goodness, Steve Rubino absolutely flying. He was only the best part of what was 3 attempts off a pole, and in the end the Evo pole sitter starts in 6th place overall, and he has the best part of 21 places between himself and 2nd place Evo driver Jan Nuggy, who will have the company of Denny Ploger immediately behind him as they go to the grid. So Steve Rubino really making himself the ultimate anomaly here at Sebring. I get the feeling it might be one of his favourite circuits, so what he goes very well at, or he's put in plenty of practice. One of the 3 theories, you take that theory and apply it, ladies and gentlemen, but we have definitely got a race here today where Rubino could get his championship back online. Meanwhile, everyone else in the Evo class has got to try and find a way to get inside his times. But here we go then, and our drivers make the way to the grid, and this is how they'll line up for what will be our race. But before, of course, they have their warm-up period. 5 minutes of warm-up, and everybody will be given an opportunity just to take a bit of a comfort break, alternatively to get a little bit more time out there, get a better assessment of the conditions, also get themselves adjusted to what will be the race setup of the car. I mean, if you may remember, of course, in previous seasons, we have had several drivers, one of whom, Steve Rubino, a big culprit of it, who've gone straight from qualified into the race, still with qualifying fuel in the car. And, well, that's led to some very intriguing moments on strategy, and also need to convert some races into 2 stops. But right now, Stephen Codman being one of a limited number of drivers who makes way out there, and the number 2 driver makes his way down, knowing that right now it hasn't quite worked out for pole position, but his confidence was very well placed. And I think here the Access Sport driver may have just taken the adage, which is, I don't need to win this race to win the championship. All I've got to do is get some points to the board and let everybody else sweat about it. And I don't think that's a bad idea from Stephen Codman here. I get the feeling that over the last couple of rounds he has changed tact from I need to win to actually a podium would be great. A top 5 is the minimum I really need, unless any of my rivals suddenly spring to life and start making it back-to-back wins. But we do say hello there to Stuart Rice in the YouTube chat, who says, petition for Steve Rubino to pro with these lap times. And indeed, I think the banter down in the paddock is going to be flying around for a bit before this race with regards to Steve Rubino's incredible pole lap in the Evo class, and will understandably he might be getting a bit of jib from everybody, but I'm sure he'll give it back just as much with the American driver, particularly when he puts words to tarmac here at Sebring in only 3 minutes time. We have Tim van den Ham making his way around with that first podium, of course, last time out. He was a very happy driver about that, and was a very happy day down in the SimRacing Team Lowlands paddock. In the fact of 1-2 for the team, which they were previously able to try and do in earlier rounds of the season, because it was Menno Bloem and Vincent Lodder attempted to do it. However, it all came to nothing, particularly after the altercation between the 2 drivers at what was the Portimao circuit, albeit they forgave each other and moved on from it. But of course, it was one of the biggest surprises, not quite a Nico Rosberg versus Lewis Hamilton from Mercedes moment in the 2015 Spanish Grand Prix, but it definitely was one of those moments where you thought to yourself, well, we expected something to happen between them, but we didn't expect it like that, where both drivers are then coming together and really releasing what was your driver at the time behind them, Stephen Codman, to go on to win that race. And really from that point onwards, Codman has proven to be the one driver that nobody's really been able to beat. However, it does seem as though they are able to beat him now, but is he just taking his foot off the gas a little bit, realising that he's done the hard work up front? Well, as our drivers roar the way around, they still do have the best part of 2 minutes here, so we will see some more indicative lap times. You can definitely tell everyone's very eager to get as much practice in as they can as we ride on board here for a brief moment with Stuart Rice. And getting to hear the wonderful roar of the Aston Martin V8 Vantage Evo, and also the backfire there on downshift from the car. And have a very different engine note compared to the 6.3 litre V8 Mercedes AMG Evo, albeit both cars, of course, using engines from the same German mark. However, the difference being that the Mercedes being naturally aspirated, whereas the Aston Martin with the turbo, and it does change the engine note and also leads to a bit of whine off the engine as he makes his way into sunset. And and you can really see there as well the bumps in the road. And the camera right now, it's not by design that it's shaking around, that is how much the bumps are shaking the car around with the stiffness of the suspension. So Price there jolting from left to right as he makes way into gender being corner, having to negotiate that, and the car really just railroading around it, which is what you need on that bumpy road surface before he returns to the asphalt. And then you can suddenly see all that bumpiness has now started to go away as it's on the much more modern road surface, and it's a lot more comfortable to drive around. As we do say hello there to James Bostock in the YouTube chat, it says good luck to all drivers tonight and a big welcome back to Robin Aston. And indeed we do have Robin Aston back on the grid today, which is absolutely brilliant to see. And well, we look forward to seeing what he can do in the 126 Porsche. He's currently in the pit lane, he's not out there on the circuit, otherwise we would pan to him. But meanwhile we pan to Chris Jennings here, and the Access Sport blue driver makes his way all the way around in the 122, and as the Briton heads towards the timeline, it'll be into the pit lane because he's only got a few seconds left to go. And in terms of taking the accolade for the fastest warm-up lap, it seems though Tim van den Ham may take that with a 201.312. It's worth nothing other than slight bragging rights there, with Callum Morrow 2 seconds behind him. But without further ado, ladies and gents, it's time then to make a way to the grid, because here comes 60 minutes of racing in round number 8 of the championship for the SimRacing International GT3 Championship Season 10, and you're tuning in here at Sebring to Split B. So onto the grid they go, and as they do, this is how all the drivers will line up for our 8th round of the season. It is Nick Stubbe who takes pole position, his first pole position of the season for Vulcan and Fasters by Glass Tech Racing, and in the end does so by the best part of 800ths. A brilliant lap there, that 1 minute 58.358, and Peter Duke lines up on the front row of the grid for the first time in a long time, but he will be absolutely ecstatic about that as it's an all Mercedes front row, and the DC Motorsport driver will be hoping today that he can stay out of trouble and potentially make a podium, if not the win come his way. Stephen Codman lines up third for Axis Sport Red. 9, he doesn't need to win the race in order to be leading the championship and get closer to winning it. All he needs to do is keep within sight of the podium and definitely a top 5. The Axis Sport Red driver will be joined on that second row of the grid by the man who's kept him honest all season when it's not been the Dutch contingent. It has been the Briton of Robin Milton for Phoenix Racing Green, who is Acura, not a popular car anymore, but Robin Milton definitely keeping the Acura fan group alive and demonstrating what exactly that mid-engine rear-wheel drive machine from the American manufacturer can do. Behind him, starting on the third row of the grid, it's David Hutchison for Axis Sport Red. And goodness me, it's been a long time since I've been able to say he's been on the first 3 rows of the grid. But the Axis Sport Red driver there surprised everybody and in good taste as well. He returns to early season form, with Steve Rubino starting 6th, and that is pole position for the Evo class. The Hobo Racing driver there putting all doubts about his qualifying pace to bed after his difficulties at Montreal and also Cota. Then we start in at 7th place, Jared Love for DC Motorsport, with another consistent qualifying performance from him, just ahead of Tim van den Ham for SimRacing Team Lowlands 1. From the Dutchman, it's then to the Britons of Mark Johnson for Axis Sport Red and Wayne Douglas for DC Motorsport, who completes your top 10. Christopher Starswell begins the day best of the rest in 11th place for Simcast Racing Team UK. Well, a solid performance there, and be hoping to get inside the top 10 before the race is over. And Philip Harris joins in there for Eurotitans Endurance, and it's good to see Philip Harris back on the grid after quite some time away, as he just gradually builds himself up there in the rear of the picture. Then for the Porsche driver, it will be Menno Bloem for SimRacing Team Lowlands 2, starts 13th, alongside Liam Fraser, who begins his day 14th for Moonshiners Racing Club. In 15th place, it's going to be Chris Jennings there for Axis Sport Blue, ahead of James Howard for Dexterous Motorsport Zemex. And then we do have, on the 9th row of the grid, Mark De Vries for SimRacing Team Lowlands 2, ahead of Simon Clifton, the privateer. And Simon Clifton once again finds himself right in the midst of the Pro Pack in his qualifying performance and not able to move forward, but definitely not moving backwards. Dean Sheesby begins the day in 19th place for Moonshiners Racing Club, and Robin Aston on his return to the grid begins 20th for GPX SimSport Onyx. Outside the top 20 then, we come to 21st place, and it's Tom Cordy who takes that accolade for Phoenix Racing Green, but he'll be joined in the 11th row of the grid by his teammate Klaas Vellum. From the German, it's then to the Briton of Jamie Bardwell, the privateer, and Fotis Katios for Splitstrack Esports. On row at number 13, it's Robin Pownier, and then at long last, you do get your next Evo driver, because alongside the Simcoach driver will be Jan Nagy, second of the Evo drivers in 26th place. But it was only there by the best part of what was 4 thousandths, with Denny Plow getting very close to taking it off of him, and the NJK Sim Racing driver will give him company from the 14th row of the grid. Adam Baker's also on said row for LS Racing, and there's another Evo driver in the form of 4th place starter for the class, Rob Gregg for Moonshiners Racing Club, head of Ross Young, who rounds off your top 30. In 31st, we have Andy Chell for Quatermass Motorsport ahead of Matt Stace for Flatline Racing, with Stace delivering his best qualifying points of the season there in 6th place in class, 32nd on the overall grid. And then Phoenix Racing Red Stuart Rice had difficulty in qualifying, but he'll be looking to move forward in the race. If he doesn't, Callum Moore will be looking to take the place off him for LS Racing. And on pro number 18, it's Dave Collier for DC Motorsport ahead of Victor Van Ziest, the lowest place pro, who starts the day 36th. On the NJK Sim Racing driver is James Fraser for Moonshiners Racing Club, and then Dexterous Motorsports Quamar's Robert McNaughton, with Martin Brand on the privateer and Matthew Hunter round off your top 40. And behind the Simcast Racing Team UK driver, we have 2 more rows to go. First of which is Gareth Newton for GPX Simsport Vertex, starting 41st ahead of Sunui Alvarez for 9 Pegasus Panthera. Both drivers, they're struggling in qualifying today compared to previous results. And on the final row of the grid, it's going to be David Pilcher for Simcast Racing Team UK and Paul Maffey for Phoenix Racing Red. So 44 starters, ladies and gentlemen, and we are almost green to go here at Sebring as the field makes its way on down the Allman Straight. They've not got long before they start, and when they do, it will be Nick Stubbe who gets this absolutely monstrous behemoth of a racing pack underway, and it will be 60 minutes of fast, furious racing action here in the US state of Florida. They call it the Sunshine State for the fact that it does catch plenty of sunshine each year, but as they make their way into the sunset today, will it be sunshine smiles for Nick Stubbe, or will it be frowns and browns for him in the favour of Peter Duke, or for some others further down the grid? Let's find out here as Split Ree gets ready to go racing. And it's lights out, and away we go then as Nick Stubbe leads the field away. And as Peter Duke looks to try and get the move on him, tucks him immediately behind. Robin Milton there tries to follow, but Duke covers him off as they make their way towards Genderby and corner. And for the first time, cold tyres. Steve Rubino there immediately ahead of David Hutchinson. He's had an absolute lion's leap there, has Steve Rubino. But as they head in towards turn number 3, this is where we'll start to see the field concertina together. 2 by 2 they come down. Oh, going to speed to the wall there. There goes Mark De Vries. Car size loose, comes back across the road, and somehow it's dodged by everybody. I don't know how that's happened. We're going to need to get a replay of that, but that is incredibly fortunate for everybody involved. Oh no, and another Sim Racing Team Loans car goes around. It's Menno Bloem. Bloem's been ejected out. Car into the grass as well. That's Dean Sheesby who's been caught up there. So there's been drama for the Dutch outfit, also for the British outfit of MRC. And as all tries now build themselves up to a tender, where it's going to be all about gaining some positions here as Klaas Vellen tries to go around the outside of fellow Corvette driver Robin Pownier. The 2 drivers here fighting hard to be the best of the Corvettes, of which there are only 2 on the grid, and here they are. And as they make their way onwards, well, we know that Pownier is the faster driver over the race distance, but Vellen is the faster driver over a single lap normally. As they head up towards turn number 10, right now it's side by side all the way, and Robin Aston is watching from behind, as is Tom Cordy, as they look to try and get involved. But the battle for second in the Evo class, well, hold the phone on that one, because that is Simon Clifton being spun out wide. They're coming out of turn number 10. Not quite sure if he was aided on that adventure, but either way, he's come to a stop in the grass and is now waiting to get himself moving once more. But what we're about to say is that young Nuggies moved forward, and Chris Jennings is off the road. Jennings out there, missing the rear wing as well. I think he's been pushed to the wall there coming through Tower Bend, albeit did he do it of his own volition or not? We'll have to wait and find out, but that's a change. As meanwhile, it's going to be the Moses manoeuvre there as James Fraser and Callum Morrow split the seas around the wounded car of Chris Jennings, and well, it's going to be a move there from Callum Morrow that doesn't work out, but James Fraser moves up into 8th place in Evo and is moving quickly. Matt Stace, meanwhile, has fallen a long way down the order. The biggest loser in the Evo class in terms of places since the start, and runs out wide there. That's going to give Dean Sheesby an opportunity to make a move, and Robert McNaughton right now is going to be absolutely rubbing his hands together and thinking he can out-drag the Mercedes, and what it's good at is drag races, the Mercedes, but that McLaren right now is on the inside here. McNaughton's going to go all into Sunset Bend, contact between the 2, and in the end they go to the wall. McNaughton's able to dodge it, but stays, hits the barriers, and Matthew Hunter comes up through and takes 2 for the price of 1. I think there in the end it may have been an error, whereby we did see McNaughton just come across the road. There's a car across the road there coming out of Sunset Bend. That is Dean Sheesby who's gone out wide into the barrier, goes spinning across the road, and they all just about dodge the wayward Mercedes. I'm not quite sure what it is about Mercedes and also Ferraris here today, but those seem to be the 2 cars right now, the bogey machines here, and they've been in a lot of drama on the opening lap. But meanwhile, those who have not been in drama are your leading Mercedes and Nick Stubbe as he carries on here, race leader by 4 attempts over Peter Duke. Then you have Robin Milton in 3rd place, ahead of Stephen Codman, followed by Evo leader of Steve Rubino, who's gained 1 place overall from 6th to 5th. He's calm. Then we've got David Hutchinson in 6th, ahead of Tim Vandenham, followed by Wayne Douglas, Jared Love, and Christopher Starsmore has gained a place, moves up into the top 10. Liam Fraser is best of the rest in 11th. Then we look a bit further down the order. Conversely still fighting hard with Robin Power. I think this is going to be a repeated theme of today, albeit I'm not complaining about it. And the fact these two Corvette drivers are so close together as they fight each other. And right now, no difference between them. And Vellum very close, but not quite close enough to be able to make the move this time as he heads through Cunningham into Tower Bend, but definitely trying to bear his fangs. But then again, what we know is that Robin Power, he's a very relaxed driver, and I would love to hear from him whilst he's racing. Of course, I don't think we're allowed to, but I would love to know just how intense he gets in that cockpit, because part of me imagines he must be one of the most relaxed drivers on this grid, because he just never seems to be under a lot of stress, even when he's fighting. But right now, he's definitely fighting hard versus Conversely, who flashes lights. They're trying to get into Pownier's head. I can imagine Pownier's just simply going, yes, and what exactly are you trying to tell me, other than you want the move? But right now, the Phoenix Racing green driver trying to put the pressure on as much as he can, and Pownier just simply saying, no, you're going to have to be a bit more inventive than that. But where they're fighting, meanwhile further down the order, we do look to David Pilcher, who's picked up the places as a result of several incidents for other Evo drivers. Well, he goes a bit deep there, the Supercars Racing Team driver through Le Mans Bend, and teammate Robert Norton, well in fact not teammate Robert Norton, the Dexterous Motorsports driver gradually catching up behind him. Two similar livery cars to be fair in terms of the profiles until you look at the logos, but right now Norton trying to go on a recovery drive after his altercation with Matt Stace. He'll be getting it back together, as will Dave Collier as he goes onto a third tour of the circuit. He's got James Fraser and Callum Morrow right behind him as they head into Agenda and Bend. And we'll be right on board here looking back from the rear of the 7th place Evo car. Right now, Collier's looking quite happy here in his position. And well, as we do see Fraser using all the road and a bit of grass as well, using all the track limits. James Fraser very eager to make some progress, but right now I think that eagerness is just overextending a little bit as they come through turn number 5. And Collier, to be fair, a rather experienced driver now, having been on the grid for the whole season, and we've seen some great performances from him, and this is going to be another solid performance if he's able to force James Fraser back into the clutches of Callum Morrow, which he's doing so. And in fact, as they come down to the braking zone, here comes Morrow looking up the inside. It's Porsche, Morrow all the way in towards turn number 7, the LS Racing Blue Machine, and the MRC, the Moonshine Racing Club Porsche, tucks back in there into its grey and black, and will James Fraser losing the place after a small error coming through turns 3 through to 5, and that's cost him what is the position to Callum Morrow, who will now go hunting after Collier, and very quickly will indeed. But further back, Mark Johnson, who started from the pit lane, well, he's gradually made his way up the order. I think there was an issue with the car that they had to rectify, but the Access Sport red driver right now all over the back of Gareth Newton, and Adam Baker is there with him, albeit Johnson, who qualified all the way up in 9th place. I think he'll be ruined the fact they weren't able to start from that 9th slot on the grid. However, now he's got all the work to do and to gradually carve his way through the field. Menno Bloem involved in that open lap incident. Well, he's down in 37th place and on a recovery drive. We also had difficulties with Chris Jennings and Mark DeVries, who both had to do repair work to their cars, and indeed that has put them well out of the running order, at least for now. As Mark Johnson there looking for a move up the inside of Gareth Newton. This is for overall position only, with Newton being an Evo driver to Johnson's pro status, and well, Johnson will move up into 33rd place. Their classic move into Le Mans, and well, Newton fighting it but not too hard, as Adam Bacon now needs to try and find a way to make his way through as well. But coming to Evo drivers who are fighting, it's Aston Martin as Andy Chell. We ride aboard the dashboard here of the number 5 machine, and with the Great Mass Motorsport driver staying close, but not close enough at this time, as they make the way down the start-finish stretch. Heading down in towards that opening braking zone then, and as he does so, well, you can see they're quite confident in the dirt here, but turns in a little bit too early, and actually he has to open the steering wheel back up, because otherwise he would have been at risk of hitting the inside wall, and that is a nasty wall to hit, and once you hit it, you essentially rebound your way across the road, and well, it's not a good place to be, as meanwhile that's the car rejoining there, and that is Philip Harris, who's had a long fall down the order, and well, in the end, unfortunately, he is going to split this Evo pack, so now Philip Harris proves to be a little bit of a rolling roadblock here for Chell, and Ross Young closes up behind. But Harris has definitely been escorted off the road of some description, as we do have a yellow flag that's been served for both Bardwell and Katios. They both picked up slowdown penalties, I suspect, in turns 3-2 through to 5, and Stuart Rice there fighting with Dave Collier. Indeed, he's getting very gloves off here, as Rice trying to hold on to 6th place at Evo, and Collier putting the pressure on. But these two, they're close. But I think right now both drivers have also got the mindset, which is we need to stay close to each other, but we also want to catch up to Chell and Greg, who are not too far away. So therefore, it really is what is half a dozen of one, and what is none other than 6 of another, in the fact that if Collier goes to the move here, yes, he'll gain the place, but he's going to cost himself the time to Chell, but he's got to have the confidence that he will be quicker and catch back up. And DC Motorsport driver definitely is starting to show the fault that he's quicker, but Stuart Rice is not flinching and is holding his position. But with that, we're going to hold off on the live racing for a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, and come back to some replays, because we had plenty to talk about the start of the race, and here was the green flag. So our drivers all got ready to go racing. We're going to focus in particular on none other than Mark De Vries, I believe, who ended up being caught up very early. In fact, we are going to get the on board here from De Vries as he made his way away from SimRacing Team Loans 2, and let's try to understand what exactly happened. So decent start as he made his way in towards turn 1 behind Chris Jennings. Hard on the brakes they all went. Took a nice tight line, and that was to keep himself as nice and safe as possible. Then got on the throttle coming out the bend. Kept it over on the grass as tight as he could towards turn 3. Went into the braking zone here. Oh, goodness me. And there was a knock of some description. And Mark De Vries sent spinning on around there and through the middle of the field. You would not quite believe it. Can we get an alternative camera angle with regards to what happened to De Vries? We can. And under braking, we will see there was contact there. Was that Sheesby's car that he got pranged by on the rear? I think it might have been on braking. It's not the clearest, but that's my guess. And that's not saying it did happen from Sheesby's perspective. This was Dean Sheesby, who, after what happened to Mark De Vries, he was escorted off the road at turn 5. But what exactly happened to him to lead to that? We lost the rear of the car there coming through the corner, cold tyres, and went sliding off the road. And Menno Bloem, meanwhile, ejected himself the other way. But for Menno Bloem, I think it might have been a bit of a different story here as he made his way through. Slightly different camera angle available. Made his way into the corner. Well, Sheesby ejected itself out one way, and in the end, Sheesby in the background, Bloem just got the power down, and the rear did not hook up at all. So it went wrong there for both drivers, and both spinning out of their own cause. We also had it go wrong for Anna Baker, but we had this for Simon Clifton. And this was Clifton missing a rear wing previously to this, so I think he was involved in a bit of contact and made his way into turn 10. No rear wing, and I wouldn't be surprised, no downforce in the rear of the car, and gets the power down, and the rear of the car just simply says no. But then we had this for Matt Stays towards the end of lap number 1. This was the altercation with Robert Norton, where the two of them came close together. Can we get a better view of that contact between the two drivers? We might be able to, and in fact we will try to here. This was them making the way down into the braking zone, and it did look as though McNaughton came slightly across there, perhaps thinking he would have cleared Stace, but in he had not, and that's what went wrong for the pair of them. We also did have a bit of drama for Philip Harris. This was on lap number 4 a bit more recently. This was Harris making his way out of turn number 1, heading up towards 3 then. Went onto the brakes. That was Bardwell right behind. Bardwell looked up the inside. Small tap there potentially. That camera angle not being the most flattering for giving us information. And then that was how Katios picked up a yellow flag. With the fact he had to take his way over the turn 4 apex onto the grass. That's going to do damage to the suspension, but it prevents him, or you'd say dodges him, from picking up damage to the front end of the car. But back to your live racing we come, ladies and gents, because we can't stay in replay mode forever, and we come back in brilliant time with Denny Ploger right now under pressure for third place in Evo with Rob Gregg all over the back of him. But Gregg looking up the outside now in towards turn 3, trying to go all the way round as they all queue up together, and that's going to be Gregg making the move. Lovely move there from the Moonshiners Racing Club driver, and moves into the third place spot in Evo. But as he does so now, the pressure's going to be on for Ploger. Can he come back, or does he find himself under increasing intensity from Philip Harris, who right now would love to get the places back after losing out? We have had some drama for Robin Aston quite recently. We'll get a replay of that in short order. But Gregg right now still under pressure from Ploger. It's a big dive up the inside. That's Collier coming in like a missile there. Well, he's made his way to the inside. Ross Young's been ridden on a little bit in terms of door riding, but Collier somehow got that stopped. I thought that was going to creep straight towards the apex, but he got the car parked to the brakes. He's gained multiple places on Ross Young and Martin Brandon as a result of it, but that's one way to gain places, you could say, as Ross Young tries to do the same, but in the end Young goes the outside and has to let the car roll deep, or as he would have sent the man round with him. So Collier in the end does get away with it, but I think right now those drivers, when they get out of the cars at the end of this race, they're all going to be saying to him, you do realise that we all had to give you the space to survive there, because otherwise it could have been far, far worse. But if you don't go for it, you never know, to be fair. But for Dave Collier, I think that's a bridge too far, and we won't cross that one once again in any near future race. But it's been an exciting 12 minutes for so many of these Evo drivers, as Martin Brandon and Callum Morrow together, and James Fraser is gradually catching up to the back of them. You can see him there in the rear of the picture, and he's bringing with him Victor Van Ziest and also Mark Johnson. But right now they all stay nice and close. But the one thing that is confirmed is that Rob Gregg has moved into third place in the Evo class, having made that move, and Denny Ploger now, having been passed by Harris, he's got Vandy Chell for close company here. The Aston Martin's really coming alive in the early stages of this race, and Ploger is struggling a little bit. And I do wonder whether Ploger might just be backing off here and trying to do a bit more of a strategic approach to the race, which is to save some fuel. But it is looking as though right now Denny is struggling a little bit, as Chell looks one way then the other. And well, as they come in towards the end of the being quarter, Chell's going to go in on the inside. Ploger does not defend it too hard. He'll just hold his natural racing line here, but he will be rolled out wide slightly. And Chell in the end is able to take the place. Lovely bit of work there from Andy Chell. Ploger being quite encouraging. And Stuart Rice up the inside. Rice goes for it. Collier goes very deep. Rice looking to the inside then through turns 3 3 into 5. Does he stay there? No, he doesn't, as Ross Young, meanwhile, side by side here, and Collier's going to go out to the gravel, and as he brings his way back on, well, it does mean that Ross Young does get ahead, and now Martin Brandon fights with Collier. It's Mercedes on Mercedes. Brandon goes around the outside of Big Bend, but Collier's got the inside coming down towards the braking zone here for turn number 7. Well, Brandon's going to go all in, but goes very late on the brakes. He does a Collier, but he makes contact with Young, and they all stack up together. It's a traffic jam down at turn number 7, and those who get in a bit later, they go round the outside. Well, it's unfortunate there. James Fraser does pick up a slowdown, but he serves it immediately. So Martin Brandon in the end loses out. Dave Collier gained, and well, frustration understandably there for Ross Young, who ends up finding his race put backwards rather than forwards. But as they all come back together, that's James Fraser onto the grass there. My goodness, the car snapping there as he made his way on down. Look away for a brief moment and look back to see the car sliding to the apex. James Fraser right now in a Porsche definitely does want to point it straight line for some reason. I'll try and get an understanding of that when we can. But it's all kicking off right towards the back of the field. And then towards the very front of the field, Nick Stubbe is under pressure here from Peter Duke. As right now, your race leader, well, they are, as they were at the start of the race, Stubbe ahead of Duke. Milton has got ahead of Stephen Codman into third, but Codman's right behind him. And then Steve Rubino, the Evo leader, he's still holding on to 5th place right now. Rubino is absolutely flying with this pack. And I think he's very happy with the pace he's delivering right now. I wouldn't be surprised here if he perhaps even fancied a cheeky chance of what is a top 3. If he can get on that overall podium as an Evo driver, that is going to be a huge accolade. We have had drives of the lower class in previous seasons, particularly when we have had the sprint race format take podiums, even overall wins in some instances, particularly the legendary event, of course, at Mazzano when we did have Season 9 in Split B, the Premier and Evo classes, many of you may remember, in absolutely brutal conditions with regards to the rain. We saw an all Evo podium that day in race number 2 at Mazzano. But right now here today, we do have one Evo driver who is the wolf amongst the sheep of the pros. I think he considers himself a bit of an opportunist to try and take that podium come the end of it. But meanwhile, we take an opportunity to look back at what happened to Robin Aston on what was lap number 5, because it all went wrong. But what exactly went wrong? Well, we start off with the incident for Aston, and there was also one for Tis Katios. So under braking this was, Katios just in front there, and Panu as well. So Katios went round, and Aston in the end had to take evasive action. That was Jan Nagy, who also got almost caught up, but in the end the contact then, trying to get the wheels down for Robin Aston, sent the car on around. So very unfortunate there for Robin Aston. Can we get a replay of that from Jan Nagy's perspective? Yes, we can. And well, what you're going to see is Nagy comes into the corner, and then Sonny's confronted with a Carlos in the middle of the road, and Robin Aston takes evasive action, and Nagy has to take evasive action as well. But that contact between the two of them helped send Aston around. Nagy, I don't think, will hold himself accountable for that one, understandably, just for the simple reason that he came into a scene of an instant and the yellow flags would not have been visible. That explains what happened there. So Katios losing the rear of the car, and Robin Aston in the air, and really becoming the victim of circumstance. But meanwhile, Nick Stubbe, we come back to him live racing right now, and as he does so, well, Peter Duke and Robin Milton are all there together. And as they come towards the end of what is lap number 8 of their race, well, we are 16 minutes in, we've got plenty more time to go here. Right now, no change. Duke and Milton, of course, stay behind the leader, and they can play the game of fuel save and manage the tyres a little bit more comfortably. From one DC Motorsport driver who's in the lead pack in second place. We then come to the second pack, and it is 2 DC Motorsport drivers together here in 7th and 8th place respectively overall. It's Wayne Douglas and Jared Love. They're enjoying a good race so far, and they're actually looking quite comfortable together with Tim van der Ham and Liam Fraser playing hot pursuit, and Christopher Starsmore is currently your 11th place driver. So he gained 1 place at the start, only then to lose it to Liam Fraser. But right now, I think the fact that he is in this 11th place in his BMW M4 Evo, it's going to give him the confidence he might be able to squeeze the top 10 in here, albeit he's going to need to try and do something on strategy, because it seems like the pace is going away for him compared to the cars in front. However, never say never. He may just be hoping he can stay within 2 seconds, and that will give him the strategic opportunity. We take the opportunity to say hello there to Chantal Ploger, Van der Veen in the YouTube chat, of course, cheering on none other than partner Denny Ploger. And well, coming back down a bit further on the order, we do have Klaas Vellem, who has been able to get ahead of Robin Powney, who got caught up in that altercation earlier on. And well, Vellem right now, the leader of the 2 Corvettes in the pro and overall considerations, with Tom Cordy 7 seconds behind, and then Powney. And here is Cordy in the wonderfully coloured Mercedes AMG Evo, and then Powney staying close behind as they complete the top 15 of the pro class and the run to 16th place. Jan Nagy in the rear of the picture there, your 2nd place Evo driver, trying to get a little bit closer and trying to get involved. Coming to Gareth Newton, meanwhile, as we talk more about the Evo class, currently 32nd place or 12th in Evo. He's got Matthew Hunter, Sunui Alvarez and James Fraser in front of him. And right now staying right in the thick in the midst of a battle as we ride on board here with the number 24 car. Very different lines there from all four drivers, with the Fat Hunter taking a very wide approach through Cunningham in towards the bend. With that into Collier bend. Oh, goodness me, someone's got it wrong, and that's very wrong there for James Fraser and Louis Alvarez. The two of them had to come in together at Tower Bend, and well, right now Alvarez's car missing the front bumper and a lot of damage on it. Meanwhile, Fraser, he's got some damage, but he's able to survive it just about. But that's going to change up the places there, and well, that is not a happy moment for all drivers involved. And understandably, I think there's going to be a lot of frustration there with regards to exactly what has happened. And we will try to get a replay of that when we can. And in fact, we do have an immediate action replay to explain, ladies and gentlemen. This is the two drivers heading on in, and well, was there contact there between Alvarez to Fraser on entry to the corner? There may have been. It's not the clearest as to whether there was a touch, and I think Alvarez in the end coming off the worst for it because of the rest of the field coming into the scene of the incident. Can we get another on board? And the answer is yes, we can. It does look as though it's only a brief clip we have, but it looks like there might have been contact, and then Alvarez unfortunately pushed into the sideways James Fraser because the rest of the field came through behind in the concertina, not realising what had happened until it was too late. Albeit Alvarez there backing off to give Fraser the place back, but losing more place as a result of it, plus also now missing a front bumper. So Alvarez, being a sportsman, I think he realises he did make the contact, but unfortunately it's come off really poorly for him as we come back to live racing. And here we see Chris Jennings trying to go around the outside of David Pilcher into turn number 3. Well, that's not easy even if you have a pace advantage, but indeed he will get it done. And Mark DeVries queues up behind. But Jennings will be hopeful he can use the Evo driver as a little bit of a space barrier between himself and DeVries as the pro driver here from SimRacing Team Lowlands continues to recover. But do keep in mind, both of these drivers have made one pit stop. They will need to make another because they had to go in for a fast repair. It is not a strategic pit stop. Meanwhile, well, here's a little bit on-track strategy because Dave Collier right now get ahead of Callum Morrow. Stuart Rice back with Morrow here as he looks up the inside into Tower Bend. Rice fighting hard here. These three absolutely razor-sharp battling between them. And Stuart Rice does take the place as Collier has made his move on both of them there. So Collier 2 places up, and we get a quick replay to show you how he got it done. So this was coming down in towards what was Cunningham Bend. Hard on the brakes went Rice up the inside of Morrow, and they made a bit of a touch, and in fact they continued to make contact there as Morrow had to straighten the car out on the door of Rice, and that's how Collier took the places. And then Rice understandably wanted the place back immediately here, so he wasn't going to waste any time in lunching back up the inside of Tower Bend. But a very tough moment there for Stuart Rice. Thought he got the move done, only to find out he all came undone, but now he's back on the attack versus none other than Collier. He's all there coming in towards Sunset Bend, and right now Rice all fired up here. You absolutely love to see this from Stuart Rice, to be fair. Right now he is driving angry, but in a good way. He is not letting misfortune hold him back. If anything, he's using it as a motivator, and he's chased after that 6th place in Evo Class 9. He's got podium pace, but right now he wants to take that 1st place in front of him on the road, and then all the others he'll figure out after that. Going in towards turn number 3 then. It's a brilliant run there for Agenda B in corner. Onto the brakes he goes. Collier's going to try and hold the outside, hoping it puts him on the inside of turn number 4, but goes very deep. And then he has to back off the throttle without hitting that curb at 4. As Stuart Rice does take the place. Brilliant work there for the 42 driver. Regains it for Phoenix Racing Red, and now will be hoping a breakaway. But will Collier let that happen? Here we go then, on board with the man through Big Bend, and the DC Motorsport Mercedes looks threatening here. Looking up the inside, but can he beat the Aston Martin on the brakes? Not quite. He has to stay behind. You can see there in the rear TV camera inside the car. That is none other than Callum Morrow staying with him, but these three right now absolutely locking horns, and Collier not able to make that counter-attack work, but perhaps building himself up for something a little bit later. Meanwhile, looking back up the order, we look to James Hauer for the Charlotte's Racing Club team. We've got Klaus Vellum for close company behind him, but Jamie Bardwell in front of him. And he finds himself between a rock and a hard place here, as Bardwell right now will feel as though that he could hold on to this 12th for the time being, or 11th place in the Procast, on course potentially for one of his season best performances. And Bardwell, to be fair, has chased the top 10s this season on a regular basis. But James Hauer's right there with him, however, of course, as well, for a better performance day. And Klaus Vellum, well, he's proven to be a bit of a threatening actor in that Corvette, where he perhaps hasn't been there in the pace this season thus far. But it does go to show you that it's not about how you start the season, it's about how you end it. And all three of these drivers are on an upward trend. But meanwhile, on a forward momentum, it is Liam Fraser looking up the inside of Tim van den Ham into turn 1. Van den Ham lets the car go out to the outside there, tries to open up the corner, but Fraser is still there. The Mercedes driver's got so much momentum coming into turn number 3, but in the end, Van den Ham is able to beat him on the brakes into the left-hander, and they'll stay as they are for now as we look back from the rear of the 103 Ferrari. And right now with Vandenham, this is a very different story compared to the circuit of the Americas, whereby in Texas it was all about just staying with Vincent Lodder and making sure just to run on strategy together to make it a 1-2. Here today, no Vincent Lodder on the grid, and right now Vandenham, one of the highest, if not the highest member of the SimRacing Team Lowlands team, with the difficulties from Mark De Vries and Menno Bloem right at the start of the race, ejecting them out of the running order inside that top 10, and therefore right now Vandenham finding himself a bit lonely, but holding his own and holding it well versus Liam Fraser as they roll the way into the next braking zone. But from him, we then look all the way out to the very front, and Peter Duke has actually taken the lead of this race quite recently. We didn't quite catch that on camera. It did happen 2 laps ago, but there you can see Duke is now starting to bolt away here. Gap up to 1.4 seconds ahead of Nick Stubbe. But how did he get the move done in the first place? Here's a replay to explain. This was coming on through Big Bend and down towards turn number 7, and when the Duke was close, he's been that close for some time, went up the inside and Stubbe turned in only to find the Mercedes drivers fully committed to the move, and Indian had to respect it, and that is how Peter Duke got into the lead. Stubbe stayed with him going into Fangio Bend, but by the time they got their way in towards Cunningham, he decided it wasn't worth trying to fight it back. He thought about it, and we looked up the inside, but in the end Peter Duke just able to beat him on the brakes, and I think that's a sign of what's to come. As meanwhile Robin Milton fighting side by side here as we come back to your live pictures. He went up the inside, as I hear it, into Sunset Bend, and right now it's Nick Stubbe who's falling down the order here. But is this tactical, or is it pressure starting to build as Milton's going to sweep round the outside for Phoenix Racing and move into second place? Well, I think he's in a hurry. I think he realises that Duke's going to break away here if they let him go. Meanwhile Stubbe there tries to come back, but Milton gets his elbows out, forces Stubbe there to use the minimum amount of racing room on the outside of turn number 3, and Robin Milton does not want to let Duke go, and therefore he's trying to say to Stubbe right now, look, I want this place. I've got much bigger fish to fry than you. But meanwhile, Nick Stubbe is saying, no, look at me. I'm the captain of this battle for second place. And Peter Duke, meanwhile, just stepping away and fighting off into the distance. Well, flying off into the distance, I should say. 2.5 seconds is the gap that Duke has enabled himself to take. As well, Robin Milton there completely outbrakes himself at the hairpin. And here comes Stubbe again. And Stephen Codman, meanwhile, we get the wonderful on-board perspective here from the 4th place perspective, as the X-Systems red car just watches on. Side-by-side battle then coming down into turn number 10. Stubbe on the inside. Milton goes all the way round the outside to defend. The inside of turn number 11, but he's still there as Milton. Bounces off the curb, and right now Stubbe holds it with vigour in towards turn number 13. Milton there briefly disappears and reappears, and as they come through the right hand, Stubbe's there, but they both had to back off. Milton goes out wide, a little bit of power oversteer there for both drivers, as Stephen Codman right now cannot get involved. He has to play a spectator, but Stubbe gets the place back. But goodness me, what a way to get it back, and it's not over yet. With Steve Romino, the EVO leader, only half a second behind this, and then David Hutchison is queuing up. This pack right now is only going to get tighter and tighter as they come down through turn number 16, and Stubbe almost loses the rear of the car. My good lord, that Mercedes sliding around for Vulcan Fastest by Glass Tech Racing. Milton right now has got to use that information to his advantage. He's got to freak himself right. If I keep Stubbe under pressure, he's going to cook those rear tyres. It's something the Mercedes is vulnerable to. Those rear tyres in low gears really struggle for grip because of how much torque is pushed through them by the engine. But as they come out of turn number 17, right now Stubbe has no issues at Sunset Bend, but Milton is left. He's right. He's looking every which way. He's like a boxer, bobbing and weaving. Stubbe goes defensive here, and now coming across in towards turn number 1 on the outside. It's going to be Milton looking all the way round, but he goes a bit too deep as Milton outbrakes himself, carries too much speed, and therefore falls backwards. And Codman, again, just waiting in the wings here, thinking, right, don't fight them, let them fight each other. There's an opportunity to take 2 places here, and we are getting closer to pit stop territory, given the fact that we are 26.5 minutes into the race distance. We are definitely now well in the pit window, as into the pits comes Andy Chell from what was at the time, I do believe, none other than 4th place in the Evo class. He releases Denny Ploger, but he's coming in. We've got a black flag for Fontes Katios, and that will be a drive-through penalty for instant points. But Chell has decided to make his way to the pit lane, and it's a gamble, but it might be a good one from Chell because of the fact the field has spread out a bit, but this is a long circuit, so therefore you don't have to worry as much about finding traffic, particularly when you're lower down the order. And whilst this is a much longer circuit, what you can see, and the field is spread out, it's not spread out enough to cover the entirety of it. So that is going to be a big question mark. We're going to have to keep an eye on what Chell does once he exits the pit lane and whether he can leap places, because he may be a reference mark of the Quatermass Motorsport driver for a lot of other teams to consider coming to the pits themselves. And meanwhile, as this fight here between Stubbe and Milton takes a brief pause. Well, David Hutchinson behind, well, he's chasing after Abino, and the Access Sport red pair of Hutchinson and Codman, they're both waiting to try and move forward from what is their placements in the Pro Class of 4th and 5th respectively. Jared Love is there, 7 tenths behind, and then Wayne Douglas still with his teammate for DC Motorsport. They're trying to catch up to Peter Duke if they can. They'd ideally like to make it 1, 2, 3 on that podium. I think that's going to be a lot harder than it sounds it's going to be, just for the simple reason that they are a bit off the pace at the moment. And well, you've got a lot of cars ahead, but they might be looking to work some strategy into this. Going back to Classvellen versus James Howarth. They fight over 12th in Pro or 13th overall. One and up the inside here in the Corvette for Phoenix Racing. Meanwhile, Howarth on the outside there for Dexterous Motorsports. Both hard on the brakes there through Sunset. Mellon holds nice inside line as Tim Van Ham makes way into the pit lane. So he decides to gamble, does the Dutchman for SimRacing Team Lowlands. He will be the highest driver to pit so far. Fastest lap of the race, Jared Love, a 59.20. There might be something to be said about DC Motorsport. I wonder whether they've got Love and Douglas working on an undercut strategy or an overcut, one of the two, but they're either going to go very long or alternatively they're going to pit soon. Meanwhile, on screen, Howard still fighting here with Wellen. Well, in the end, holding on despite going too wide all the way through turns 1 through to 5. But in the end, Wellen will get ahead at the right time. Back to Milton. Here comes Stephen Codman then. Milton couldn't find his way into second, so Codman says, right, now it's my turn, Robin. You better be ready because you've been harassing me all season, and now I'm going to give you a taste of your own medicine. Albeit friendly, of course. And as Robin Milton holds on to third, will Codman showed his first signs there of trying to take that third place. And this might be to put some mental pressure onto the Acura driver. He might be trying to convince Milton to pit because otherwise he'll just lose race time. And therefore, right now for Robin Milton, the question is, as a driver, do you stick to your strategy or do you change it because of the fact you're under so much pressure to move forward, but you've also got all that pressure from behind now starting to build, and well, only he can know the answer to that one. It'll be intriguing to see. In terms of where Andy Chell's come out of the running order, he's made his way back out in 37th place, and he is catching quickly to the back of Simon Clifton. Keep an eye on that Clifton is an anomaly because he has already been to the pits once due to the damage picked up at the start of the race. They did put some fuel in the car as well, but Clifton will need to come back in again. So therefore he's not a really good marker, but it does mean that Chell does have some traffic in front of him that may hurt him, as Dean Sheesby there, who's recently pitted as well, makes his way past Paul Maffey from Phoenix Racing, and the Moonshiners Racing Club driver now up to 33rd. And now he has got a 17-second gap to Robert McNaughton, and that's going to give Sheesby some confidence here that this undercut strategy may work out for him if he is able to keep up the pace. As we can see Clifton there looking to the inside of Maffey, but not quite able to land the move, at least initially. Into the pits has come Robin Milton, so has David Hutchinson. So Axis SimSport split their machines and they decide to use Hutchinson as the monitor for Milton. Milton has decided enough's enough with the pressure. He comes in. Jamie Bardwell as well comes in for the bottom end of the top 10. As he makes his way on down pit lane, well, Klaas Vellen stays out with James Howarth right behind him. As we look back from the rear of the leading Corvette. And in 9th place on the road, but effectively they're fighting over 11th to 12th place here. Well, they make the way on past a car that's going a lap down there, and that being the car of none other than Sunil Alvarez. But Wellen right now doing a fantastic job here of holding on versus a very capable Dexterous Motorsports Aston Martin. And I'll tell you one thing right now, this is James Howarth back to his very best in terms of wanting to fight and chase down top 10s. But Klaas Vellen also really coming to his own as of this round as they head onto the brakes. As they come down the gearbox, the Aston Martin looks to the inside, but it's all for naught. Vellen there matching him in terms of his braking point and the speed. And they stay as they were as we leave the me for a little bit. And we do so in good time because too wide we go for Dave Collier battling with Adam Baker. And well, right now Collier and Baker have both yet to pit. They're in two different classes, but they're fighting overall. And Callum Morrow queues up behind this. But for Collier, he wants to get clear, but he goes wide. And as a result, here comes Morrow. The LS Racing drivers trying to work together here with what is Baker trying to help Morrow get past. But Morrow there going around the outside. Collier's going to defend the inside. And Collier right now for all the mistakes he makes at turn number 5. Make no mistake, he recovers very well. Oh my goodness. And that's Morrow completely misses his brake marker and almost hitting the rear of Baker. By inches he missed that. And that's going to enable Dave Collier to take the place back. Adam Baker there as well. I think he was so surprised that in fact he outbroke himself on corner exit. And now here comes Robin Milton. And Milton has come in the thick of this. This is not good for Milton, who dives up the inside of both of them immediately. Goes all in. Razor sharp hot there. And Collier gets back ahead. This is nightmare fuel for the Phoenix Racing team. Milton has come out and he is fighting in the thick of it. All that pit stop maybe not for naught. As he comes down for turn number 13, the Acura driver right now has got to try and get past Robin Milton again then gets past Adam Baker, but now Collier's in the way, and well, Dave Collier yet to pit. You would imagine he's going to pit soon as all the leaders come into the pit, so look out my content booth window. The only one who doesn't is Klaas Vellen, who goes another lap. Sebring is going to lead a lap of this race. They'd be very happy with that, and he's going for the overcut strategy, as we are Robin Milton, I suspect, is going to come out at the very back of all this. Jared Love is leaving the pit lane, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Unless he's missed his pit marker, I think he might have, because the car's still static there. Well, I think Love was trying to get an early drop, but in fact the car has maybe slid out of its pit box, but Powney is still out there. Mark Johnson's still out there, but who is going to be out of the pits first? It is going to be Peter Duke as we look to the blimp camera. He makes his way along. We've got so many cars in the pit lane at the moment. Where is Robin Milton? Here is Milton, and he's been in that fight for the best part of what has been a whole lap. So Duke is out. Nick Stubbe is out there as well. David Hutchison's come back out. Stephen Codman's just come out the pit lane. And then suddenly, Robin Milton has come up behind Rubino, Love and Douglas. So Milton, from pitting from what was third place, he has dropped all the way down to effectively what is, if my mental maths is correct, he's come all the way back out in 7th place. He has lost 4 places because of getting caught up in that fight. The undercut has not worked out for Phoenix Racing here. They've made a mistake on strategy, and now riding on board for Robin Milton. He's going to have to do things the hard way here. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but this has got to be one of the biggest losses on strategy we've seen this season, and the Acura driver right now has really got to get the bit between his teeth here, but he's got a lot of very fast cars in front of him, and DC Motorsports, Douglas and Love, they may not be as quick through the corners in those Mercedes, but they are very quick on the straight, and that's the problem for the Acura here of Milton. It's got it all in the corners, but it hasn't got the straight line speed. As we do have a slowdown applied to our race leader class villain, that'll be for track limits coming out to Le Mans Bend, and well, that's going to cause him to lose some time. But not too much. I suspect he'll be into the pit lane by the end of this lap. But meanwhile, Robin Milton right now will slow down to not. He's not going to be slowing down anytime soon, as he has to try and go on the attack and find a way to recover this race, because right now a top 5 is slipping out of his hands, let alone a podium in the Pro Class overall. Black flag off camera for Ross Young. That's for instant points. That will be a penalty, a drive-through penalty at some point that he's going to have to serve, most likely within the next 3 laps. But meanwhile, Callum Morrow here, well, his penalty is the fact he's still stuck behind Dave Collier after their pit stop. And Collier right now, will say what you will about the Mercedes driver, but the one thing I can tell you for DC Motorsport is he's absolutely been loving the racing today. He's been right in the thick of it time and time again as the Evo driver. And whilst he may not be on course for a top 5 finish in the Evo class, this has got to go up there as one of his best defensive drives of the season, keeping Callum Morrow, a driver who is a race winner here this season, behind him. And he has been doing it the hard way. Well, understandably right now, Collier really working every inch of the tarmac and every aspect of that Mercedes to its utmost. But meanwhile, as our leaders have come on through, past me here in the commentary booth, Peter Duke returns to the lead. With Nick Stubbe close behind, and then David Hutchison has come out ahead of Stephen Codman. Now, he did pit one lap before Codman, and remember, he did shadow Robin Milton into the pit lane, and Hutchison, in fact, had a much quicker pit stop than anybody else, 19.75 seconds stationary, whereas the next quickest in this pack was the 22.3 second stationary time of Nick Stubbe. So Hutchison did a lot of fuel saving, and that's how he's got ahead of Codman. Now, understandably, Axis SimSport may decide towards the end of the race to swap the 2 teammates around if they dare to do so, for the simple reason they'll want Codman to wrap up the championship. But even with 4th place here, given the fact the only driver who's really gaining on Codman will be Nick Stubbe, who finishes ahead of him, with all the other major championship rivals behind, actually you would argue it's probably better that David Hutchison takes the higher position, because then he can get more into the fight with the other championship drivers, fighting over the right to chase down Codman. And if I wouldn't be surprised if Axis SimSport actually say to the 2 drivers, no, you're willing to race, go for it. And I can imagine that Stephen Wilkinson right now be on the pit board saying to them, just keep it clean, guys, but otherwise you can race each other, because right now the championship is not under threat given the way the points are going. But as they make the way onwards, well, time will tell whether that strategy plays out correctly. And behind them, of course, is your Evo leader, Steve Rubino. And right now, he's definitely on course here for a top 10 overall. He's definitely on course potentially for a top 5 here overall. And the Evo lead is definitely in his hands, but he won't be taking the top 5 if he makes a mistake like that. Runs out wide, coming down for turn number 16. And if that's an example of the commentator's curse immediately applying, well, I don't know what it is, because as they make the way down, well, right now there, cuts across Jared Love. Wayne Douglas up the inside as well. Rubino doesn't fight it too hard. I think he'll be gutted from that mistake, but he's got to figure the bigger picture as Robin Milton looks to squeeze up the inside. I think this is Milton trying to say to Steve Rubino, look, I get it, you want an overall place, you do like it, but at the same time, look, I've got fighting to do. You've got an Evo lead to take home. And here I am. And as a result, with Rubino immediately tucks back in behind and lifts off there and respects the fact that Robert Milton, he's definitely got the fire in his eyes right now. And I don't think the Evo leader wants to be in the way of that Acura. Otherwise, I think it could get quite messy very quickly. Not saying he'll take him off the road, but I can imagine that Robert Milton will not be playing what will be musical chairs with him. He'll very quickly be breaking the proverbial chair down and getting on through. But meanwhile, Conversely here all over the back of Jamie Bardwell as they fight each other going into another lap. We have had an incident for Rowan Powney that's seen him with a damaged car having to head to the pit lane. We will get a replay of that shortly because that's a bit of a heartbreak for the Simcoach driver. But Vellum right now all over the back of Bardwell in the fight for 11th in the Pro class and what is 12th overall as we show you the class positions. And as they make the way into the final third of this race shortly, it's definitely been an entertaining race across both classes. We've seen battles everywhere we look, albeit the Evo class a little bit quiet right now. But don't you worry because Conversely is keeping things nice and loud here in Pro as he looks around the outside then through Fangio down in towards Cunningham Bend. And Jamie Bardwell going defensive versus the Corvette driver as much as he can. But remember, it's a right into a double left and then a double right. And now for Vellum, it's all about holding his line. Gets Bardwell there to run a bit deep. Elbows between the two of them, a bit of contact. But Jamie Bardwell fighting his right to survive there. And we hold on for now. Brilliant racing between these two. They are bringing James Howarth right to the back of them. And then they've got an 11-second gap to Tom Cordy. So they won't be too worried about Cordy, but they will be mindful that Howarth is there and getting ready to get involved and potentially getting ready to swipe the place of the pair of them. But as they head in towards then turn number 16 again, well, through Le Mans Bend they go. Bardwell right now doing everything right there in order to get the best possible exit for 2 attempts. And it's the battle of the V8 machines now. 3 different V8s, all different power plants and all different aspirations. And as they roar the way onwards, with Bardwell here under pressure towards sunset. Here comes Vellum up the inside, but Bardwell will use that outer line there to carry a bit more speed to the apex. But he does have to go deep there because Vellum did stick his nose in intentionally to make sure he had the right to be there. And that means now it's going to be a side-by-side drag race down the start-finish straight. The only problem for Vellum is he is picking up the side draft there, but he's not picking up as much of a toe. Howarth goes to the outside. He decides there's no point. Vellum cuts across as well. And now as they come in towards turn number 1, we can see that Bardwell going defensive as you like. And Howarth cuts back 1. 3 wide. Is he going to get both of them here towards turn number 3? The answer may be yes. Onto the brakes he goes. But Bardwell sees it coming. Gives the Aston Martin driver space to cooperate. Well, and looking around the outside now into turn number 5. But Howarth there using the opportunity and smoothly as he likes takes the place as Conversely jumps up onto the grass. And as he brings it back together for Conversely, well, that's a bit unfortunate there. Pushed himself hard, but in the end left the door open there, and James Howarth was never going to say no to that one. As meanwhile, we take a look back to the man who in the rear of your picture had difficulty only moments ago, and this is what happened to Robin Powney. So this was Powney making his way at the time down into a Sunset Bend, was running in 16th place, under braking. Car bounced on its way in and goes in with a lot of speed on the ridge. Oh my good lord! The amount of speed the car came into the corner, and well, everyone aware of what's happened immediately going out wide. Powney, they're having to wait to get the car moving. But I can imagine that's a damaged rear axle, and how that car is still moving after that knock to the barrier, well, your guess is as good as mine. But thankfully able to just gradually crawl it to the pits and do so safely there, Powney. But the Simcoach driver, we absolutely frustrated about that one. Good, his race wasn't going too far forward. I think he was happy with the way it was going, and suddenly it's all gone backwards into a tyre barrier as quickly as that. We're actually a live race, and of course we still will come back to the fight for 11th place in Pro between Bardwell, Howarth and Wellham. But we also do have the fight for 14th in Pro between Cordy and Harris. As here comes Philip Harris looking up the inside into Bishop and then Le Mans. Doesn't quite make it work, however, and is made to stay behind. But when there's fighting in those classes, we've also got fighting in Evo. Martin Brandon diving up the inside there, Paul Maffey, and Brandon there moving into 12th place at Evo after making some great gains early on. The same for Matt Stace, who was just in the front of the camera, but both drivers have had some difficulties. Meanwhile, no difficulties here for Robert Norton, or are there? As the Dexterous Motorsports driver tries to keep Matthew Hunter and Gareth Newton behind for 8th place at Evo. We briefly lose him, he rematerialises, but Hunter right now on the charge, and Newton wants to play. As Hunter dives up the inside, but the car disappears, and in the end has to back off entirely from Norton, not knowing where he'll be. Flashes lights there, and Hunter not too happy right now with the way this is going, as Menno Bloem there have a very poor run through Tower Bend. Well, he lifts off and lets the places go, and in fact I think Bloem's got damage to the car because he's crawling around right now, and I think that's going to be a trip to the pits again. I think the suspension damage there from one of the curbs he's hit. But that number 9 Ferrari, well, we did say around here it's a very rough circuit, and if you hit those curbs and those bumps, time and time again, you will gradually unsettle the suspension, and perhaps they've got it set up incorrectly here, and that's what's cost them the time. But meanwhile, let's not waste any more time questioning what's happened there to Menno Bloem. We know he is struggling along. Oh my goodness, and that's a big dive at the inside there to Sunset, and that is Robert Norton and none other than Matthew Hunter, as Gareth Newton squeezes his way up from the inside. And will Matthew Hunter in the end, I think, decided to go for it, went from quite far back, and Newton will take the 2 places up into 8th and Evo. But my goodness, Robert Norton's still going behind Hunter. I think Matthew Hunter there will retrospectively not be too pleased with that, as he gives all the space there to Robert Norton going for turn number 1, and then takes the place back again. So giving the place back temporarily, it would seem, or was he there? Not quite 100% sure, but what I can tell you is that Gareth Newton is already walking away from this fight, and Hunter and Norton are getting closer and closer to each other. Can we get a quick replay of what exactly happened there between the two of them? The answer is yes, we can, and here is where it all went a bit wrong. So this was making the way down towards what was turn number 17 in towards Sunset Bend via the Allman Straight. Now Hunter goes all in here. We jump aboard because he did have the problem at Norton's car blinking in and out, and Hunter went all in there. And well, Norton was very slow through the quad. I think Hunter wanted to carry his natural speed plus a little bit more. And how on earth Newton timed that to perfection, I'll never know. But as Norton tried to get himself back together, if he had turned in a little bit sooner, he would have been with Newton, and the two of them would have been going around, and it could have been even more drama. But definitely drama there in the fight for the final 3 spots inside the top 10 of the Evo class, and it may not be over yet. But as Sunset definitely settles in now, and the headlights are on for all these cars, we do see Peter Duke and Nick Stubbe together. And these are your 2 leaders overall and in Pro. They have been like this ever since they've left the pit lane. And right now, Stubbe, the aggressor, versus Peter Duke, who wants this just as much, if not more. And understandably, given the fact that Peter Duke has only had 1 podium this season, it was a 2nd place in round number 4. And since then, he has not finished inside the top 10. And last time out, of course, it was a non-finish after the open lap incident. For Duke, if he could bring this win home today, this would feel an absolutely emotional journey. It would feel like the biggest roller coaster ride of his season, to go from a non-finish last time out and all the misery he's had for 3 rounds in a row to suddenly being on the top step. But Nick Stubbe, understandably, he had the non-finish as well after that huge shunt with Menno Bloem, and it is, as a result, for both of these drives, a win that means so much. But for Nick Stubbe, it also has championship connotations, because he wants to be the 2nd place man who chases down Stephen Codman, and when Codman's in 3rd, only behind, well, the problem will be there that right now Codman isn't really losing anything if he finishes 1 place back behind, but he does have a 160-point lead. But here they come then, down Auburn, and it's going to be Stubbe looking to the inside here. 15 minutes left on the clock, but Stubbe right now building it up, gets close, taps the rear, goes sideways. Does he keep it? He does hold it together. Stubbe just about survives that contact, but goodness me, he got so close there, and understandably, I think he then just got too close for comfort, and it all came loose. Robin Milton battling up inside of Jared Love. These 2 fight each other hard. We have lost David Hutchison in all of this. We are going to need to get a replay of what exactly has happened to him. And I think Hutchison has actually had to come back into the pit lane quite recently for what has been a further pit stop of some description, because he's fallen all the way down the rank and file. But that's a surprise, not a welcome one to be certain. But David Hutchison has definitely lost out as a result of what has been a pit stop quite late in the day after a much shorter pit stop, and that might explain it. But with that in mind, as these drivers make the way on around right now, Robin Milton here definitely tried to make sure that Jared Love does not get back past him, but that has released Wayne Douglas to 3 seconds clear, and Jared Love here trying to fight hard, and it is the DC Motorsport team that want to try and make sure at least 2 of their drivers are inside that top 5, pick up some big points. And here comes Love up the inside, goes all in, but in the end, does he get it stopped? Yes, he does, but not on circuit. And here comes Tim Van Den Ham, who takes the place off of him. And I think that was a lot of enthusiasm there for Jared Love, but in the end, his enthusiasm was slightly misplaced, and he does lose another place as a result. But he all went in for it. Been in a bit too much was the amount of speed he carried into the corner. Going back to David Hutchison then, fighting here with Tom Cordy as he tries to recover his way back into this race. Goes a bit deeper in his own accord as well. I think he'd be absolutely fine with that as he comes on through. And right now, these 2 drive side by side here. Some fantastic racing as Cordy right now trying to hold on to this 14th place in the Pro class. But Hutchison knows he's got top 5 pace. He's just got to find his way around the outside. Can he do so? The answer is yes, just about. He's still got work to do there as he makes way through Collier and in towards Tower Bend. And in the end, I think Cordy's just going to run out of room. Or is he? No, he's not. Cordy's actually successfully got himself back on the inside. Fair play to the 117 driver. They are going to go too wide then all the way up towards Bishop Bend. But right now, this is no game of chess here. It's high stakes, high speed poker. And who's going to have the poker face? And in the end, Hutchison does not flinch, whereas Cordy does back off in the end. And well, that's going to be the difference between the two of them, as behind them is your second place Evo driver of Jan Nagy. And right now, the iRacing driver comfortably in that position with Denny Ploger, third of the class. And he has got Rob Gregg only 2 seconds behind and tried to stay with him. With a quick update on the rest of the Evo top 10, you have Rob Gregg here, the Moonshiners Racing Club driver, who is on the attack as much as he possibly can, but Ploger is the faster driver at the moment. And then you have Andy Chell running in 5th place, 8.3 seconds behind. And it's Adam Baker there with him, with then Stuart Rice. Well, it's 2 seconds back there to the 6th place Evo driver, who is 5.7 seconds ahead of Dave Collier, the DC Motorsport Evo driver, who's really been one of the stars of the class today, fighting every which way. And then we've got a bit of time before we get to Gareth Newton, who is a further, what is none other than 21 seconds behind in 8th, with Robert McNaughton and Matthew Hunter close together in 9th and 10th. Here's McNaughton. We briefly lose him, but he rematerialises. And then Matthew Hunter there completing that top 10 in the EVO class at the moment for Simcast Racing Team UK. But as he tries to push onwards, well, meanwhile, we look from them back all the way up to the very front of the field. And with that big slide, Nick Stubbe has lost out for now. I emphasise for now because last lap, Peter Duke, a 2-minute 0.62. Stubbe, a 2-minute 0.12. So even though he's had that big slide and that near miss, that doesn't slow down the Dutchman for Vulcan Fastest by Glass Tech Racing. His enthusiasm and his eagerness to try and make this move happen is still there with him. And you can't take that out of him. I can tell you that right now. And the fact that Stubbe, if he sees an opportunity to go for the win, he will go for it, and he will bear his fangs to do so. And who can blame him? But he's got to get close, and then he's got to find a way to make the magic happen. And the only driver who's faster than him on the circuit right now is Mark Johnson, all the way down in 18th place overall, 16th in Pro, who you see here, all back of Jan Nagy as they get ready to go into Bishop Bend. But for Mark Johnson, it's definitely been a frustrating race. He has had to go onto a 2-stop as a result of the open lap incident, which put damage on the car and therefore forced him into the pits. But you can imagine if he had not been involved in that, would he have been fighting for the podium? Would he have been fighting for the win? And gut feeling says probably yes. But Nagy there steps aside immediately. The second place Evo driver, now he's got nothing to gain by fighting for this position, and instead decides to tuck back in immediately and pick up a bit of tow, and also potentially save some fuel if he needs to. Smart work there for the iRacing driver, as meanwhile Matthew Hunter, he's trying to find his way back past Robert McNaughton again. And well, both drivers are fighting their way through turns 10 and 11 to 12. Fotis Katios is closing, albeit that's the pro driver closing on the back of them as we look to the overall standings. And then Martin Brandon is the next Evo driver, but he is the best part of 14 seconds behind. But looking close is Hunter, and right now you would imagine that if he is able to predict exactly where he can go for the move at McNaughton, he'll go for it, albeit of course the problem being there with McNaughton having a bit of an unstable connection, it would seem, and well, that could be the sign of a technical issue that's incoming. And with McNaughton, hopefully it's not, but as they come through turn number 16, Hunter really struggling through the corner there. A wall of understeer hits him like a very firm hit to the face. Well, indeed, I was going to say a slap to the face there, but I thought that'd been a bit appropriate. But as they make their way onwards towards turn number 17, right now Hunter close here. Does he go for the move this time? He does, but McNaughton sees it coming, and Hunter lets the car roll deep instead. He goes all the way around the outside, or does he? Not quite. Hunter tries it, but McNaughton is still there. And as they come through that right-hander, Katios now queues up behind. And well, if you're Hunter at this point, I would say that the Split Track Esports driver will probably want to let the Greek driver on through and use him as a little bit of a means to try and move McNaughton aside, because otherwise you're the first driver in this order, and I think Katios will be patient, but he won't be that patient for too long. As we are into the pits has come Martin Brandon for another pit stop, so I can imagine perhaps they've had to put a bit of extra fuel in the car, and that's a surprise, but not a welcome one there for the Privateers outfit. Right now, Matthew Hunter really finding himself caught up in a difficult situation. And Katios, meanwhile, who normally provides us with plenty of entertainment fighting other pro drivers. Well, today it's been a bit of a frustrating day for him. He's fallen a long way back. But he'll go up the inside here. Hunter into the braking zone for turn 7. And Hunter decides to let it go. Smart move there from Hunter. Katios given the space, does it fairly. Now Hunter can use Katios to try and move a bit further onwards. Meanwhile, we come back to the fight for 5th place, and well, since we walked away from it, we have seen a change of position. Tim van den Ham has moved into 5th ahead of Milton, and Jared Love is right there with him. But how did he get the move done? Here's a quick replay. And it was Van den Ham who was up the inside. So a slow run out of Le Mans Bend for Milton. It meant that Van den Ham was always going to try and go for this into the sunset. Milton covered off the outside, looked for the switch back here. Van den Ham called it out and parked the car precisely on the apex. And as Milton tried to get the power down, in the end it hit the back of him. And that's what cost him some of the momentum. And that's how they changed the places. Well done to the SimRacing Team Lowlands driver. And now Jared Love will fancy his chances here as we ride aboard the front bumper of the DC Motorsport Mercedes from Scotland. Well, he's close, but is he close enough here to think about a move? The answer is no, not yet, but he might be come the end of this lap. He's able to stay that close all the way down the Ullman Straight. It's one thing to say you can do it, it's another thing to prove you can do it. As he heads through turns 12 and 13, well, right now the 110 driver is just not quite there. In fact, falls back a bit. The gap opens up to 6 tenths, and I wonder whether Love's perhaps running out a bit of tyre life here. He has been quite aggressive this race with regards to his tyre usage, but that's because he's been very eager to try and make these places up as much as possible. But perhaps now that is starting to have a little bit of a consequence as he's going deeper and deeper into this race. Now, one thing with regards to a bit of trivia about this Sebring circuit, ladies and gentlemen, in case you're curious, in the early days of racing around here, well, you did have a racing circuit and it was denoted typically by cones, but not necessarily by all the curbs and markers you have here today. But we'll hold that thought, because right now James Howarth battling here with old rival and friend Liam Fraser. Well, he's looking up the inside. And this is going to be for 10th place in Pro, if he can make it count. So, however, of course, here for a top 10 finish. Goes up the inside. And I don't think Fraser's really got a response there. Lets it go. I think Fraser's, in fact, missing the front bumper in his Mercedes as well. They've not been able to put it back on the car. And as he comes out the corner, that's the move made there for James Howarth. Fraser's 4 attempts behind, but that gap is staying quite static. And he's not coming down at a rapid rate or not. And Howarth up into a length overall, 10th in Pro. And his next target is Klaas Vellen, who's 1.7 seconds ahead. But with regards to the little bit of trivia we're talking about, in the early stage of the race here at Sebring, where the circuit used to be marked out, it was marked out by cones, but also it was a circuit that did not have all the Armco barriers and tyre barriers that you do see in the modern era of motorsport. And what it meant was, particularly in low lighting races, so going into sunset and night time, it was not uncommon in endurance races to have drivers get lost and end up driving into the remainder of the airport, and as a result, drivers would have to retire from the race because they've essentially left the circuit and they couldn't find their way back. Thankfully, with the amount of ambient lighting they have here today, plus also the white lines on the circuit, and also the cones and the markers, that's no longer a problem, but it definitely has been a problem in the past here. And, well, you wouldn't be surprised if you end up with drivers going into the old airport terminals back when they could easily get lost. Meanwhile, make no mistake, we find ourselves very comfortably back on track with regards to plenty more racing. And as we look back to the very front of the field, Peter Duke still leading then by 1.9 seconds over Nick Stubbe. Stubbe trying to get that gap down. He is chiseling away at it little by little, but Stephen Codman behind is now matching his pace, albeit Codman is 6.5 seconds back. So understandably, and has the traffic in front of him, I think Codman here will feel as though this is not going to be easy at all. As that is Callum Morrow at the inside of James Fraser. This will be for 12th place in Evo. Fraser goes deep. Morrow makes the move. Does he make it count then? With 5 minutes left on the clock, Matthew Hunter has made his way into the pit lane, meanwhile, just off camera there. So now it becomes a fight for 11th place at Evo. And the answer is Callum Morrow does get it done there. Classic move being made. Morrow now only 1 place away from a top 10 in the Evo class, with Matt Stace being the target 4.5 seconds away. Serene Alvarez, well, he's had a difficult race earlier on, but right now, the 9 Pegasus Panther driver, he's keeping it together. And as he chases after Paul Maffey, still fighting over 15th in the Evo class. And some key points here as they come out of the final corner and they go on to another trip of the circuit. Albeit they are running effectively a lap down at this point to the top 13 of the field, but they won't mind that because they're enjoying the fighting as David Hutchison is into the pit lane again. As you just see him there in the rear of the picture on the far left, and that releases Tom Cordy up into 14th place in Pro Class, and he's got Mark Johnson for Cove's company. Whatever's happened to David Hutchison's race, I can imagine that must be a splash and dash of fuel. So the only other theory I have is that second time we saw him come into the pits was for a drive-through penalty for track limits, and therefore he's now having to make a third visit, but it is for an actual pit stop this time, and he'll put some fuel in the car. We will see, because we've not had any black flags awarded to Hutchison quite recently, but he's made his way on down, and boy, it's not quite worked out for Hutchison whatsoever. These drivers all still keeping it together. Where we had 44 starters, we do have currently 40 42 runners out there. In fact, let me correct myself, we have 43 runners. The only retirement we have had has been Dean Sheesby after his nasty knock to the wall earlier on. By the way, from 44 to 43 runners, we're doing very well in terms of drivers who are still in this race. It's great to see. Well, there's always a few questions that still need answering right at the end, as that's elbows out there. Robin Milton versus Jared Love coming through into Le Mans, and we're very close between the two of them. They've got to be careful of those contacts, of course. They'll never find that number of instant points they're allowed before it is going to be from instant points and warnings through to a drive-through penalty. And Milton here weaving from side to side, I think saying to Jared Love, I'm taking this place, you're not going to have it. But definitely between the two of them there, very contentious, and they make the way around as we say hello to football trading Matt Gaines, who says he's had a bit of a difficult night, and sorry to hear that, good sir. But as Milton makes his way onwards there, something tells me that might be Matthew Hunter who sent that message, but I'm sure whoever it is will clarify. And these drivers make the way on around right now, and Milton, well, he's definitely keeping Jared Love at bay, at least for another lap, but with 2.5 minutes left on the clock, Love is not giving up yet, and I think he wants to try and find one more place if he can. And if he can't, Steve Rubino is right there behind them. But looking to James Howarth, he's found his way past Klaas Wellen, as has Liam Fraser. And I think Wellen made an error there into turn one. The car's gone spinning around. He rejoins with Jamie Bardwell now closing up behind him. So Bardwell may be able to get a place back here for all is said and done. But James Howarth now moves up to 9th place in Pro. And Fraser moves back into the top 10, so therefore it does mean that both drivers will be a little bit happier. Particularly Fraser, who has been top 10 material today, and Klaas Wellen will be fuming on what's happened. What exactly did happen to the Corvette driver for Phoenix Racing? Well, here's a replay. Thunder braking into turn one by himself, goes to the apex, and the rear of the car just comes loose and comes around. I suspect that's the suspension setup, the ride height, and also a lack of fuel in the rear of that Corvette, and that combination just changed the aerodynamic pitch of the car enough that the bump in the road in the end caused the rear to come loose. It's quite common for that to happen, particularly when the car hasn't been set up perfectly, and that's why those bumps in the road are so tricky to negotiate here, because you can have all the speed on the tarmac or the asphalt, only to find out when you get to those concrete bumps that suddenly the rear of the car does not want to settle down, particularly when the car gets incredibly light. As we come back to your live racing, 1.5 minutes left, and our leader Peter Duke goes on to a 30th tour of the circuit. He's got to hold up for one more lap, and from Duke it is a 1 minute 59.37. For Stubbe, it's the fastest lap of the race, a 59.114. 2.5 tenths closed down, but Stubbe's still got 1.5 seconds to close. Can he get there? Duke has a little bit of traffic in front of him, and it's fighting right in front. That is Menno Bloem up the inside of Fontes Katios. That battling, well, if it should continue, it may get in the way of Peter Duke here, but Bloem clears Katios as they come out to turn number 5. Duke might be breathing a big sigh of relief here as they come down for a big bend, but right now you can see just how close Duke is getting to the pair of them in front, and he'll be grateful for that. He's getting a little bit of slipstream. He's got to be ready to offset the dirty air, and also the fact he does not want to catch them too soon, as the brake discs glow red hot down the front of that Mercedes for DC Motorsport, and he's already halfway through the lap. He's now only got the other half to go, and a checker flag awaits him at the end of it. But Stubbe, of course, will want to spoil the party for DC Motorsport. They'll want to stop him from winning, because Stubbe needs that win to really gain ground on Stephen Codman, who is only 8.5 seconds back in 3rd place, and Codman right now with another 3rd. He will be starting to put one hand on the trophy come the end of today. The championship will go on to next round at what will be Road America, but Codman there could wrap it up quite comfortably should the results go his way, and he delivers a good result of his own. And Wayne Douglas not quite close enough to get on the podium as much as he's pushing. In the Evo class, Steve Rubino still leads, comes to be an 8th overall, and it's Jan Nuggie who is currently your 2nd place runner here in the class, 6 seconds clear of Denny Ploger, with the NJK Sim Racing driver chasing, but being chased as well by Rob Gregg. But as we make our way then back to the front of the field, well, down the Auburn straight they go. It's 1 second. The gap is closing little by little, but for Stubbe, I don't think it's going to be enough. For Peter Duke, all he needs to do is clear Sunset one more time. He sweeps his way in. He makes his way past the apex and out of the corner. A checker flag he has long awaited to see arrives. And for Peter Duke, it's from non-finish at Kota to victory at Sebring for DC Motorsports driver ahead of Nick Stubbe, who's 2nd for Vulcan Fasters at Glass Tech. And then it will be Stephen Codman, who makes it another podium, and for Axis Simsport, a championship crowning pro that gets ever closer. Wayne Douglas takes 4th ahead of Tim Van Den Ham in 5th. Robin Milton coming home in 6th place ahead of Jared Love. Steve Rubino reasserts himself at the very top of the Evo class and proves all the doubters wrong today with a dominant win ahead of Krista Starsbot and James Howarth, who complete your top 10. It will then be some time before we do get to the rest of the Evo field with Liam Fraser, their best to rest at 11th. But we look back to Jan Nagy because he makes his way through the final bend. Well, for the iRacing driver, he's second best today, but second best is good enough to make sure he stays in second in the Evo Championship ahead of Denny Ploger, 5 seconds behind at the finish, and the MJK Sim Racing driver will make it another podium finish. And the championship momentum is definitely starting to build with him. Rob Gregg missed out on the podium, but will be absolutely pleased with that 4th place of Moonshiners Racing Club. And there'll be Adam Baker coming through the final corner. And then rounded off your Evo top 5 in 21st place will be Stuart Rice. They'll be happy, given it started today with a misfortunate qualifying session, but it's ended on a top 5. Andy Chell didn't quite have enough for a top 5, but for Great Mass Motorsport, a 6th place finish in Evo. He won't be too upset about that. And then we will have Mark Dries in 23rd ahead of Dave Collier, who definitely provided the entertainment today. And it'll be Victor Van Ziest, who's come all the way from 36th to 25th. And a Simon Clifton in the end. We've still got a few more drivers to make the way to the finish. Gareth Newton makes his way then towards the very last line. And he will finish in 8th in the Evo class, 27th overall, having started in 43rd. And then we will have David Hutchison crawling along here. I don't think that 4 Mustang's got enough fuel. Can he get to line here, or does he run out of momentum? We look to the speedo. I think he is just going to make it, but he'll lose out to Robert Norton and also to Menno Bloem there. But in the end, Hutchison will be your last lead lap finisher, but he'll crawl across the line in a gutting 30th place. And it just has not gone right for the 4 Mustang driver at Axis Simsport. And I suspect the number of times he came into the pits there was due to a technical issue with the prior pit stops. But as the circuit begins to quieten on down and all of our drivers gradually call their way back to the pit lane, it's been an incredible showing here at Sebring, no doubt about it. And there's been some absolutely incredible performances. Number 1, of course, is Peter Duke for his victory. But also further down, the likes of Christopher Starsmore, for example, here you can see, who takes 8th in Pro, 9th overall, and returns to the top 10 for the Simcast team in his BMW M4 that definitely has proven to be a challenge all season long to conquer. And of course, we've had the incredible performances in the Evo class of Steve Rubino, Jan Nagy and Denny Ploger, with Ploger once again on that podium. But as we do look to the scenic view, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And here they are, starting with the overall finishing positions for round number 8 of the SimRacing International GT3 Championship Season 10, as proudly sponsored by Trophy AI and also SimCoach. And it was, of course, the Split B broadcast, which you've been tuning into today. An overall win then for Peter Duke, and how the fortunes have been reversed. 3 rounds of misery, 3 rounds of instant plaguing him, and a non-finish last time out in Texas. And today he was the winner and did it absolutely right out of the circuit with strategy and pace in equal measure. The DC Motorsport drive had been followed up by Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing's Nick Stubbe, who couldn't quite take the win but took the 2nd place and importantly a couple of points off of Stephen Codman. But Codman was 3rd, and the Axis Simsport Red Championship leader, he knows that 3rd place means that next time out at Road America, all he needs to do is land a decent result, and barring an exceptional set of results, he will be your effective Pro champion before the season finale. Wayne Douglas took 4th for DC Motorsport, couldn't quite make it onto the podium, but was close behind Codman right at the close, head of Tim Van Den Ham for SimRacing Team Loans, who completed a finish inside the top 5 once again, and had to fight his way there ahead of Robin Milton, who today, for the Phoenix Racing Green driver, he had all the pace in the early stage of the race, but by the end of stint 1, the pace was undone, the strategy came undone as well, and the team got it wrong by pitting him early and put him in traffic, and as a result for Robin Milton, nothing has clicked, and that's why he's 6th. Jared Love took 7th place there for DC Motorsport, charging hard towards the end, but couldn't find a way back past Milton. But he was ahead of Steve Rubino, your Evo winner there for Hobo Racing, and what a drive. Started all the way in 6th place, settled for 8th, but the key point being nobody was touching him at the front of the Evo field. Krista Starsmore for Simcast Racing Team UK, and James Howarth for Dexterous Motorsport Zemix round off your top 10. And best of rest on 11th place was Liam Fraser there for Moonshiners Racing Club. We then have to go all the way down to 17th place to find Jan Nagy there for iRacing, your 2nd place finish in the Evo class, just ahead of Denny Ploger for MJK Sim Racing, with the 2 drivers exchanging lap times, but 5 seconds was the gap between the 2 of them on the podium, and Rob Gregg was only a further 2 seconds behind to fall short of the Evo podium, but 19th overall. Adam Baker round off your top 20. And as we look further down the field, we'll come on to the more critical class finishing positions shortly. We can see there your top 30 finished on the lead lap, with the last finisher crawling into line with low fuel in the car was David Hutchison there for Axis Sport Red. It was a lap down to Fortis Katios as it was to Matt Stace, and the theme of one lap down continued all the way down to 41st place finisher of David Pilcher for Simcast Racing Team UK behind his teammate Matthew Hunter, and it was 2 laps down to Robin Pownier as it was for Robin Aston, the sim coach and GPXs for Onyx drivers both having a difficult end to their races, and the sole retirement for today was Dean Sheesby for Moonshiners Racing Club. So going into the pro positions then, and with it the points that are most important for the pros, Peter Duke, your winner then by 7.5 tenths for DC Motorsport over Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tip Racers Nick Stubbe and Stephen Codman, a further what was 9 seconds behind. But to be fair, he won't be upset about that because the result was what he needed and he's delivered on it, no question about it. Wayne Douglas, 4th there for DC Motorsport by 4 seconds over SimRacing Team Loans Tim Van den Ham, who today was under a lot of pressure, the Dutchman, to perform, but he definitely withstood the pressure and has made the team proud as their leading representative. Robin Milton took 6th ahead of Jared Love, for Crystal Starsworth, James Howarth and Liam Fraser wrapping up the top 10 of the pros, and Liam Fraser fighting his way into that top 10, benefiting for some difficulties from others, but to be fair, in the right place to capitalise at the right time for Moonshiners Racing Club. Klaas Vellant, best to rest in 11th. The unfortunate spins towards the end of his race of Phoenix Racing Green circumvented what was always looking to be a solid drive for what could have been 8th place, but he'll definitely feel as though the confidence in that Corvette is growing. Jamie Bardwell was 12th there for the privateer with a misfortunate race midway through, and therefore lost several of the places he gained, had to settle for 12th ahead of Philip Harris, with the Euro Titans endurance driver qualifying very comfortably, but in the end find himself being pushed down the order to that finish in 13th in the class. There was then Mark Johnson, 14th there for Axis Sport Red, ahead of Tom Cordy, who enjoyed plenty of batting with the Briton, and the Phoenix Racing Green driver then given away to the rest of the Pro Top 20, which include Adam Baker, Mark De Vries, Victor Van Ziest, Simon Clifton and Menno Bloem. And mentions there to Mark De Vries and also Menno Bloem, the 2 SimRacing Team Lowlands drivers having misfortunate starts. It all went wrong in the opening lap and therefore they had to try and recover, but on a 2-stop strategy compared to a 1, it was never going to prove easy. David Hutchison, 21st there, with problems striking in right towards the end of the race when he was on course for a podium potentially, and the Axis is what red driver being followed up by a lap down for Fortis Katios, and we also saw a lap down there for what was Ross Young, Chris Jennings, and then 2 laps down for Robin Pownier and Robin Aston, and the retirement of Dean Sheesby. Coming to the Evo class meanwhile, and here we can see at the very top, Steve Rubino for Hobo Racing. That is a statement. That is the proverbial microphone drop there. And the American driver in the end for Hobo Racing winning by 31 seconds. And if anyone's going to look back at the season and look at the turning point, this is it. Rubino back to winning ways, his third win of the season, I should say, and with it, moving his championship lead to a bigger height. Jan Nagy took 2nd there for Iris Racing, an important result, keeps him still in the hunt, head of Denny Plugger for MJK Sim Racing, who falls slightly behind, and behind the podium was Rob Gregg there, 2 seconds adrift. Stuart Rice took 5th for Phoenix Racing Red, fighting hard in the early stages, but making sure to stay ahead of Andy Chell for Quatermass Motorsport, who advises he was fuel saving for the final few laps of the race in the YouTube chat. But still, he didn't have to save too much to fall behind Dave Collier, who took 7th place there for DC Motorsport, and definitely will feel as though with all the battling he did, he deserved a top 5, not a 7th place. Gareth Newton took 8th there for GPX SimSport Vertex, head of Robert McNaughton, with the Dexterous Motorsports Kumar drive frustrating Matthew Hunter over the entire distance. And then in 10th place, a lap down was Matt Stace there for Flatline Racing, who at one point was chasing the top 5, but it wasn't to be today. Callum Morris best to rest in 11th for Ellis Racing, and then the rest of the Evo field was in the form of James Fraser ahead of Martin Brandon, with Paul Maffey, Snowy Alvarez, Matthew Hunter and David Pilcher finishing the finishers, and well, a brilliant conclusion to their race with all Evo starters making it to the finish line. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we hit the finish line of the racing here today, but we don't hit the conclusion of the broadcast, because coming up in approximately 5 minutes' time will be none other than our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. Do stick around, because it's always great to hear the thoughts of our drivers as they emerge from the race, and I'm sure we'll have some very intriguing interviews coming right up for you.
Of the green flag, and there we go. Tristan immediately getting the jump on his teammate Luke Lucchese, and he's going to have to go the long way around the outside. It's not done yet because Luke will have that favoured inside line. Going into turn one, side by side, has had a good start. He's up 2 places around the outside of Luke Lucchese. 3 wide there, the blue Acura on the inside. Hayden Phoenix Miller has gone from 4th to 1st in the matter of 1 braking zone there, and he will carry these drivers now down in toward turn 4. Great start there for the debutant who had strong qualifying pace, and now he might be up with an opportunity of making that stick if he can get the clean air in the next, and Plug could have a good run here. Let's ride on board. How does the Obliga defend going into the chicane? Is Plug going to do that tactic where you just stay there right until the last Obliga moves over to the entry into the chicane? Good driving. That's a wobble by Tristan, and he's off the road. He's going to lose the position. Is he going to stick up the inside? No. And is Justin Eloff going to fancy his chances? No, he stays.
Watkins Glen, and to have only 9 minutes till we reset and go again gives, I think, the drivers a bit of a moment to pause for thought, because how are you going to manage this, especially if you're 3 wide down the main straight? Humphrey, Leskinen, Katrali all don't get out Raj Harper 2x2 into the opening corner. Outside line taken for Humphreys. Also a little bit of time on the exit though, as it looks like it's a better run for Cali Leskinen, the leader now in that pro class, as they run their way up the hill through 2 and 3. It looks like Raz Harper's got the best run, and now we could see both elite drivers come through on both pro drivers. So they'll have to get it done on the outside of the bus stop, and that is going to be more than difficult to do. Who's going to get the slipstream? That could be crucial.
And as we now head towards the line, the first round of the season in the America's GT Challenge is underway, and there's a bit of a check-up on the second row of the grid there, as some of the guys have to really slow down and keep it under wraps. But now as they go into the first corner for the first time, hopefully everybody keeping it nice and clean. We'll have to see just how they do. All the GTEs making their way through. Obviously there's a bit of a gap back to the GT3s. They have their own race starting separately, and it's Justin Eloff ahead of Alex.
Getting a bit busy though towards the front of the GT. There's a bit of bump drafting. Perry's in here as well. Tim's looking to try and find his way through. Graham Wildmon at the back of this pack as well. Hayden Miller getting the big old push from Perry as they work their way towards the opening corner. I think it's probably quite smart from Tim there just to keep Hayden closer to the front too, because if Hayden loses out, they all lose out. So he's not necessarily going for that move.
To go for it as he looks all the way in towards the S's. 2 by 2 they go behind Christopher Wandler and Moss there. Well, they have swapped places back to how they were, and well, this is going to be Williams. A small tap between the two of them. They just about survive it, and in the end Archie Williams is going to make the move, stick around the outside. That's bold, that's brave, but that's how you get it done. And well, across the line he goes, and now Christopher Wandler also ahead there as Bowie Moss gets forward, and now they make the way down. You can see he's pulling over there, Darren. He's not happy, he knows he's vulnerable.
He does. He's just defending that inside line. He knows it's difficult to walk around the outside into the S's. Barry Nuevo is going to try it though. He's got a great run, and he's already passed. He's already passed before we get to the corner. Easy as you like. And Wildmon could do absolutely nothing to defend there. The exit wasn't too poor from the Ford Mustang, but there's too much pace in that Corvette in the straight line. And Barry Nuevo just waits bye-bye. Easy for the 77.
And well, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews. And what better way to kick off our interviews than hear from the man who took overall victory today? He joins me now. It's none other than Peter Duke. Peter, allow me to say, I think on the behalf of everybody who's tuned in, week out, congratulations. You are back to winning ways, my friend. How does that result feel?
Oh, Paul, I never thought I'd be back in talking to you. No, because it was really funny. In season 8, I won the pre-race, and then this season I won the pre-race, and I went, that's not very good because you don't win after that. So, but no, it's just great to be back. Back to first on the podium there, and it was a super race with Nick. The top 10. Last week, the last 2 or 3 weeks I've just had no luck. But in this league, you can be first on the grid, you can be 10th. With it, it's just so tight and competitive.
Oh, 100%. Such a competitive field, and started off with how competitive it was. We've seen our closest qualifying session of the season today, with the fact in the end, I believe our top 15 separated by effectively almost 3 tenths, and you found yourself in second place in that qualifying order. I mean, you must have been looking at the timing sheet every 5 seconds thinking, am I still on the front row of the grid?
Yeah, I could see, if you start looking at the timesheet all the time, that takes, it takes your eye off what you're meant to be doing on track. So you just go on track and try and get the best lines, best air packs that you can do, and the time will be there at the end of the lap. So, I'll have a peek at it and just see where I am. But Nick just got me in the last 5-10 minutes there. But listen, chuffed a bits, Paul. Last 2 or 3 weeks, just no luck. But I found a really good setup for the car, and it just worked tonight. So it was really, really good. Now, I think with the DC Motorsport guys, 3 of us in the top 7, so it was a mega night all around.
Oh, 100% for you and the team, a mega night. And going into the race, we saw in the early stages that it was really a game of yourself chasing down Nick Stubbe. Robin Milton was always there, as was Steve Codman. I mean, was there a particular strategy you had in mind coming into this one, or did you decide to play it based on how the race went?
I practiced this week in really high track temperatures, because I could never drive because you've less grip. So I think that has helped me. But going into the race, I said I'll sit behind Nick. Sometimes I'll be a wee bit too quick to try and dive up the middle. So I said I'll sit behind him, see where I'm quicker, see where I'm slower. And if he makes a wee small mistake, I'll try and pass him. And it happened out the back into the hairpin, managed to get past him and put the head down. And I knew we were pretty good for pace. I didn't think I would have pulled away to get a 4-second gap, but I just put the head down. And then pit stops aren't my great thing. I think he got 2 seconds on me, but not enough of a barrier.
Well, you definitely earned yourself a nice barrier going into the second stint. And from that point onwards, the 2 of you were swapping lap times as if it was trading stocks on a market. Towards the very end, however, we did see Nick start to get close. He set the fastest lap of the race as well right at the end. But I think at that point, all you were concerned about is, so long as I've got a second gap come that final lap, I should be safe.
Yeah, I could see it a 2-second gap, and it went down to maybe 1.8, 1.5. And I said, listen, he has to go far, far quicker to catch me. And then even if he catches me, he has to pass me. So and I had a really good car underneath me tonight. Setup was good. I could push in the right places. Corners 2 and 3, I could, get onto the back of Nick. But no, listen, chuffed to bits. Sets my weekend up lovely.
Oh, fantastic. I could hear it in your voice, the relief but the happiness as well. It's such a great story. I mean, and also it's been a great night for yourself and the team with you taking the win. But also, I mean, we saw some incredible drives. Wayne Douglas, I believe his first top 5 of the season.
Yep, great. Wayne was 4th and Jared was 7th. So great. 3 cars, top 7. And this field is really good, because it's so competitive. So it's on to next week. Practice during the week and see how it goes from there. Road America, I think it is next week, isn't it?
Oh, indeed it is. How are you feeling for a trip to Wisconsin?
I think season 8, it didn't go too bad, so I just need to get on it, see where I'm quick, see where I'm slow. Get on to Garage 61, which is a great help, telemetry-wise there. And look forward to next week. But I'm just glad to be talking to you again.
Oh, it's made my day, honestly, to be able to talk to you, Peter.
Good man.
Oh, goodness. But just before I do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout-out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Oh, just yourself, who always does a mega broadcast. Also the DC boys, Wayne, Jared, and Dave. It's great crack to us. We're all, friends there, and with a bit of crack during the week and on there tonight. But yep, and I'd like to thank Andy Dawson as well, who I've got to know there over the last while, who has helped me as well. So that's it.
Oh, well, Peter, it's been absolutely fantastic having you join me for an interview. Well done once again on a phenomenal drive to victory. I don't think anybody's deserved this win more than yourself today, and I think I'll be the first to give you the round of applause. We hope you can make it perhaps 2 in a row next time out at Road America, but you've got that win on the board, and we look forward to seeing plenty more in next round. But until then, my friend, savour the moment, enjoy it, and have a great rest of your evening.
Cheers, Paul. Thanks again.
Oh, goodness me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm actually getting a bit emotional from that one. I've almost started crying because I feel for Peter. I really do, in the way the season has gone. And the fact that he immediately brought up that, I did want to say it on the broadcast, that he has, in the 2 seasons he's been on the grid that I've had the pleasure of covering him, many of you may remember, Season 8 wins the pre-season race by quite a comfortable margin, goes on to have one of the nastiest seasons where things don't go right at all and he can't replicate what he's able to achieve. Here in Season 10, what happens in the pre-season event? He takes the win. And subsequently, how's this season gone? It's all gone in the wrong direction. But here today, you can hear it in his voice, the fact he's got the setup right. Unfortunate to miss out on pole position, but so happy just to be at the very front of the order and knowing that he's not going to get caught up in all the potential madness that unfolds behind, or at least that's the fault. And then in the race, enjoying chasing after Nick Stubbe, takes the place off of him and opens up a gap. And it was that gap that then gave him the confidence that this race was going to come to him, no matter how hard Nick chased him right towards the end of the race. And well, it shows, ladies and gents, because with that result and with the fact it's a three cars inside the top 10 for DC Motorsport, the team are back in fighting form today. And Peter Duke, your winner, and what a win it has been for the DC Motorsport driver. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got more interviews to come. We've got a packed interview room today. Another interview just around the corner. And so we come from the Pro class to the Evo class, and with it I'm going to be joined now by none other than the 5th place finisher in the class today, Stuart Rice. Good evening to you, Stuart. It's great to have you join me today, and something tells me, unlike at the Circuit of the Americas, I hate to bring it up, a happier day today, may not be a podium, but right in the fighting, and in the end, finishing inside the top 5.
Yeah, that's the thing. COTA I still enjoyed as a race. It was just, not ideal because I spun myself out of it. On this one, it was just a little bit more. I mean, it wasn't fantastic. Quali could have been a lot better than it was, but I've never been particularly quick in quali, so it was just a case of making the most of the race, really.
Well, with regards to that qualifying session, because we did see, if we exclude our outlier there and the running joke now, which is Rubino for Pro, if we can get that hashtag trending on Twitter, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, let's see if we can. Joking aside, what do you think was the challenging qualifying? Because it was so close between the likes of yourself, Jan Nagy, Denny Ploger. There was very little in it.
I think the main problem was qualifying started at about track temperature somewhere in the mid-30s, which air temperature was reasonably low, I mean about 26, but the track temperature was way up there, which meant it was a lot, it wasn't slower, it was just more unpredictable. So you couldn't really get a good solid grip on what your lap time would be, and simultaneously it wouldn't be the same necessarily from one lap to the next. So it's very hard to sort of get a consistent line/lap, and you'd think at a track this big that traffic wouldn't necessarily be a problem, but it always seems to be the case at Sebring.
Oh, indeed. It does always seem to be the way of some description where Sebring does seem to throw a few spanners in the works when it comes to the conditions. So qualifying didn't quite work out. Did that subsequently result in you changing up your strategy then to compensate?
Main strategy was just, I mean, for one of a less crude way, it was basically go as hard as possible, as fast as possible at the start without putting it in the wall. It was basically survive. So it didn't necessarily change up my strategy too much because of the fact that everyone starts reasonably the same place in the field anyway. So it's just a case of seeing where you get after the first few laps and then working from there, basically.
Well, indeed, a smart way of going about it, no doubt. Just give it your all and then see how it evolves. And we did see in the first stint some great fighting between yourself and the likes of Andy Chell. We also did have Dave Collier get involved in there. I mean, it must have felt like it was just a classic on-circuit brawl in a way between Aston Martins and Mercedes.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't exactly the easiest as well because the Aston and Mercedes, while they're very, very similar, don't really perform in the same corners the same as each other. So one corner you'll be massively quick, the next corner you'll be massively on the back foot again. It's just a case of trying to find space where you can. And I think the problem with fighting those two cars is you basically have to make absolute full sends, or you're never going to get anywhere with them. It's just a case of who's got the latest brake pedal, basically.
Oh, indeed. Well, battles on the brakes. I mean, you're no stranger to those as we look back at some of the highlight replay footage of you being right in the thick of the madness. And I mean, at one point, as we saw you all come down to the turnstone hairpin, we saw Dave Collier, we're seeing that right now, lunges out the inside of everybody. You are on the outside. I mean, I have to say one thing about you, Stuart. You have no fear when it comes to going 3 wide with people. Where do you think you get that from?
I don't know. If I'm honest, I didn't know I was 3 wide. I thought there was it was 2 cars, and then suddenly there was a third, and I basically just go around the. I've done that before in LMP2s round that corner. It's just hoping and praying that netcode doesn't happen, because yeah, it was surprisingly good for that this race. But yeah, I don't know where I get it from. It's just a case of if I crash, I crash. If I don't, I don't. But I never recklessly go into a move, I think is the best way I could explain it. It's a case of if you don't take the risk, you're never actually going to get anywhere up in the field, basically, is what my sort of ethos is with that.
Oh, 100%. And, well, I think the fact that you do go for those risks, but you are quite calculated in it, is respected by everyone tuning in and also your Evo peers. But coming from the nitty-gritty fighting in the opening stint, we did see as the race went on, the Evo field started to spread out a bit, and you did find yourself, in a way, now moving more towards a bit of a lonely fight for 5th, perhaps 6th, perhaps 7th. But going into the second stint, it looked so that 5th place became more and more of a certainty. Could you feel as though you were sort of the 5th fastest in the group at that point?
Yeah, at the point I was actually having a chat to Chell afterwards, and I called it quite early on in the race that it may happen, but he was fuel saving considerably. And when he pitted early, that was when I basically went, okay, if anything happens down the line, Chell's probably going to be low on fuel towards the end, which is, at the start, yeah, I felt like I was reeling him in, and then he started falling way back towards me, and it's like, that explains it. But the pace was there, so I do feel quite happy with that in the first place anyway.
Well, the pace was there, and indeed, to be happy with that result, I'd agree with you. So a 5th place in the card, not as many points, but you're definitely still right in the hunt for a top 5 in the championship this season. 2 rounds remain. It's Road America next time. What are your thoughts on the circuit?
I am looking forward to Road America. It should be quite a good one for the Aston, because there's a lot of fast corners on that track, and it just... There's a lot of fast corners which require a lot of weight transfer, and when you get the setup right on the Aston, it does actually lean through fast right-handers, left-handers very, very well. So I'm looking forward to it, because there should be some really good battling on that one.
Oh, fantastic. And with that, we look forward to seeing you get right in the thick of the battling and see if you make your way backwards to the podium. If not, go for the Evo win. But just before I do let you go, Stuart, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout-out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Basically, lads at Phoenix Racing Red as well. Just very, very helpful overall, and yeah, just really good bunch of people to actually be racing with this season.
Well, to be fair, Stuart, it shows as each and every week you're giving it your all with the Phoenix Racing Red team, and it's been a great effort from yourself today. Thank you for joining me in the interview room. We'll look forward to seeing you at Road America, but until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from a happy Stuart Rice. I mentioned there the fact that Dakota, he was happy with the result in the racing, but knows there was a bit more out there. And here today as well, knowing it wasn't quite the result perhaps, but he enjoyed being right in the fighting and how close it was in qualifying, as we do see the battling between him and Denny Ploger here. Another example of the absolute brawl, if you will, for the top 5, excluding Steve Rubino, the outliner, right from the start in the opening stint. But today, recognising as the race went on, the fact that with qualifying not working out well, it was always going to be an uphill battle. And I think it was the conditions at Sebring that just held him back a bit compared to what he was hoping for. But still, enjoying the Aston Martin, and towards the end of the race, figuring out he was the 5th fastest of everybody, and therefore was able to settle into it. And it was a challenge, meanwhile, for none other than Andy Chell on fuel that saw Stuart Rice being able to take that 5th place quite comfortably and add some more points to his basket. But at Road America, he's excited for it. Fancy his chances at a circuit that's got plenty of high-speed corners, and we look forward to seeing whether Phoenix Racing Red 42 can make its way back and through onto a podium, if not outright victory. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got even more interviews to come, and without further ado, we'll be right back in about 10 to 15 seconds for our 3rd interview of the night. So we head back to the Pro Class, ladies and gentlemen. As we do, we're going to get a first-time interview here with none other than Klaas Vellen, who now joins me in the interview room. Klaas, good evening to you. Glad to have you with us. And what a round of racing for yourself. 11th in the Pro Class and also 12th overall in a Corvette that looking quicker and quicker with each and every round.
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, I changed for last round to the Corvette from the Porsche. And I just feel so much more comfortable in the car. It was good racing with James over the race. Yeah, and I mean the car just feels a lot better, and I can actually go wheel-to-wheel racing with other cars.
Well, appreciate the insight there with regards to the car change. It's great that you feel very comfortable with the Corvette only 2 rounds into using it. So looking at that, I mean, also, we do have this little bit of a running ongoing theme, which is there's now 2 Corvettes on the grid. There's you, and there's long-time driver Robin Powdier. Just take us through the 2 of you fighting in the early stages, because you 2 were side by side for multiple laps.
Yeah, it was good fighting with him. I did the practice round on Tuesday, and I also had a fight going on over a lot of laps, and I just I got impatient in the practice round, and now I just knew I had to sit behind, and at some point I will get the chance to get by, and it worked out perfectly. And then after fighting with James, I just got to sit behind and save fuel, and at some point it's always gonna happen a mistake to get by.
Indeed. So learning from the practice racing, which is absolutely brilliant, and then, like you say, using strategy and also being smart with the fuel to your advantage. So that's how you made up the places as the racing went on. But what happened right at the end? Because you were looking so good for a top 10 finish, and then suddenly we look to you and it goes spinning round at turn 1.
Yeah, for turn 1 and Sunset Bend, as the race went on, I slowly felt more uncomfortable going into the corner every time. And unfortunately, 2 laps to go, I was a little bit too fast into turn 1, and unfortunately I spun out.
Well, fair play. I mean, a car that was getting more and more uncomfortable. Do you think that's something you can perhaps work on then ahead of the final 2 rounds, dialing out those problems towards the end?
I think it was just about focus. Just 1 hour in, just to keep the focus up a bit, and yeah, concentrate. And this shouldn't happen again.
Or fair play, because we'd love to see you inside the top 10 before the season's over again, and perhaps even chasing the top 5. But speaking of our next round, we head to Road America next week. Do you fancy your chances there?
I mean, it's a track I like. Yeah, I mean, it's just about getting comfortable and staying on track. And if I do that, it should be a good race.
Oh, fair play. We look forward to seeing whether you can do that at Road America and perhaps chase another top 10. But as we get ready to let you go, I also have to ask a wider picture. If you look back at your season so far, obviously you were in the Porsche, now you've gone to the Corvette. Have there been any other rounds in the Porsche that have stood out for you, or has it only really started to become good with the Corvette?
I mean, the start of the season didn't really go well, Yeah, I think just before Kota, was just not feeling the Porsche anymore, and I mean the last two races were a lot better, so I just feel more comfortable now, and it's a bit unfortunate that I started with the Porsche, but I mean it is what it is.
Oh, very true, and appreciate your insights and your honesty on that. And just before we do let you go, class, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, I mean, once to the Phoenix team, a lot of good guys. I got to meet shortly before the season, and yeah, just good guys and a lot of fun prepping with them. And then also Yannis, who got me into sim racing, and he's always helping me if I have questions. So it's very good to have him.
Oh, fantastic. Well, glad to hear you're feeling comfortable at the Phoenix racing team, and also having Yannis there, who's been able to get you into sim racing. And we're absolutely happy with that because we love to see you out there week in, week out. But with that, class, it's been a pleasure having you join me for an interview this evening. Well done on your performance today. It may not have quite been a top 10, but it was close, and we hope you're able to get one next week. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time interview, Klaas Vellen, and great to hear his thoughts there and hear him talking about the transition to the Corvette. First and foremost, saying that in the 2 rounds he's used it now, as of what was Kota and Sebring, he's enjoying the car. He feels like he can get more out of it and is able to start to extract the results. And we saw that today. And talking about, didn't really touch upon qualifying initially, but just talking about there finding himself right in the thick of the racing and able to get on, enjoy fighting and fighting for those positions left, right and centre, and was the replay footage shows continually all over the back of both James Howarth and also Jamie Bardwell, and we saw that for a long period of time. He was able to save fuel as well as stay with them. That was the comfort of the car, and in the end he was able to get ahead, and if he had been able to stay ahead of them, he would have been on course for finishing at potentially 10th if not 9th. So where exactly did it go wrong? Well, he opened up and admitted they all went wrong on the last few laps, so the car starting to feel less and less comfortable into both Sunset Bend and also into Gender Being corner at turn number 1, and in the end, as we caught that replay earlier on, the car went spinning around, and well, that was the end of his run to a top 10. But feeling the zone now, he's really able to turn the season around. He's putting the whole part of the season in the Porsche behind him, and we're very happy with the team, and well, that happiness I think is translating, and I wouldn't be surprised if we do see him get a great result as of Road America. And with 2 rounds to go, I think you'll definitely want to end his season at least with a top 10 finish. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got one more interview to go, so it's over then to our final interviewee, and we will be right back. And our final interview, ladies and gentlemen, is in the Evo class. We heard from him last week, and he joins me again tonight. It is none other than Andy Chell. Good evening to you, Andy. It's great to have you back in the interview room once again. And what's around for yourself? 6th in the Evo class, plenty of fighting, but in the end, a fuel tank that didn't quite have enough to get to the end.
Yeah, evening, Paul. Hands up, I'll hold this straight away. I messed the fuel up at the start. I didn't put enough in to begin with. It was my fault. I was focusing on other things and forgot to do it. And both me and Mike realised a lap into the race that I'd made the mistake, and we were just like, we can't recover this. It's going to be close. There's going to have to be fuel saving. And yeah, it was what it was. But yeah, no, it's not the car's fault. 100% on me. 100% on me.
Well, as they say, I believe the acronym is PICNIC, which is problem in car. Well, in fact, it'd be problem in chair, not in car in this instance, with regards to you being sat in the chair. But off the back of that, let's talk a little bit about qualifying. One of the closest qualifying sessions we have seen all season, up and down the field. You qualified 5th in class, 31st overall. Were you happy with your lap, or did you feel as though if I'd found a 10th or two, I could have been even closer to the top?
A little annoyed with my lap, to be honest with you. In practice, I've been doing 159s. I just couldn't get the car to do it today. So, yeah, again, not the car, because I knew the speed was in the car. I think that's what was frustrating. But again, I'm not going to knock fifth in class, especially when, like you say, I think from across the entire spread of the field, I think there was only 2 seconds in it, if I remember rightly, which is insane across 40, 50 cars. That's madness. So yeah, I know that the pace was in the car, but yeah, I was happy. I've been targeting back in the top 5, and solid top 10s at least with the car, and that's where we were. So happy overall, but there was more pace in the car. I know there was more pace in it, but you know, it is what it is. Practice isn't the day. So yeah, just a couple of mistakes from myself, but yeah, overall quite happy.
So happy with qualifying, even if there were a couple of mistakes, and then going into the race. You talked about any moments ago the fact that not enough fuel had gone into the car, and you realised it, and yourself and Mike had to work out a strategy to try and get you to the end, although it was going to be close. I suspect then there might have been the angel on one shoulder saying to you, you need to save fuel, and the devil on the other saying, but you're right in the thick of all the fight here. You've got Stuart Rice alongside, you've got Denny Ploger. Fight them. These are for the places in the championship.
Yeah, exactly that. So when we were at the start, we were just like, okay, we're going to have to compute this. So it was very much the devil took over, and it's like, right, okay, we're close, let's go. Had a great fight with Denny, got past him and stuck with Rob, but I think with the devil taking over, the angel probably would have been the better call, and tried to save that fuel to begin with, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, you can't. I mean, if you look at how we finished, the top 6 in the championship finished in the top 6, in that order as well. So it was one of them where you've got to risk it as well. You've got to, because like they always say, if you don't try and go forward, you go backwards. So yeah, it was very much the devil won out in the first stint, and then I paid for it really in the second stint. And even with we were saving about 0.2 a lap fuel per litre, 0.2 litres per lap. And even then it was touch and go. The car shut off across the line. So yeah, and then it was very much that the devil was still going fight them, especially like when Stu was catching up. He's like, go, put your foot down, and it's like, if I do, I'm not finishing. I've got to listen to the lift and coast, which it's very difficult to do. It is very difficult to do that, because you want to race people around you. You don't want to have to give up those places, but then you've got to think a bigger picture of what's better, finishing a place behind your rival, getting the points, or potentially not finishing at all. So it's very much, you have to have that rationale. And I've got to be honest, if I hadn't got Mike in with me, the devil would have won all the way, and I would have had to do a second pit stop, because it would have been I've got no fuel. So having that other voice that's like, Luke, big picture, really, really helps out, and I don't think he realizes just how helpful it is. So yeah, I genuinely, hats off. He's absolutely fantastic. I couldn't have done half this season without him. And like I say, him number crunching every lap just to be like, right, okay, right, we still need to save this amount of fuel. Right, we still need to save this amount of fuel. It just brings you back into your situational awareness that, you know, let's be honest, when you're racing, you can lose it quite easily. So yeah, it was a big help having Mike there, to be honest.
Oh, indeed. And I can only imagine how grateful Mike is to hear that, and the fact that the two of you are able to work together week in, week out, and the value today really are being demonstrated. And still, a 6th place finish, it may not be the result you wanted, but like you mentioned, the top 6 in the Evo Championship finish inside the top 6 places, it keeps your chances of a top 5 finish this season open. 2 rounds remain. Road America is next up. What can we expect from you there?
I really like the track. I do really like the track. I think it's going to be one the Aston works quite well at. The problem I've got is two of my rivals also in the Aston, and both of them are really talented drivers. I can't take that away from either of them. Me and Stuart were talking in the drivers' cool down room before he came in to speak to you, and he said the same. He loves Road America, so it's going to be, I think, a tight battle, to be honest with you. So, love the circuit, but expecting it to be tough. Really, am expecting it to be tough.
Oh, goodness me. Well, it's going to be close fighting between the three of you. The other member, of course, being Rob, Greg. But we'll be interested to see whether one of you three can bring home the victory in the Aston Martin or whether it's going to be a chase for the podium. But just before we do let you go then, Andy, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, so first and foremost, as always, matey, yourself putting on this amazing broadcast. As I always say, without you doing this, people wouldn't come and watch, we wouldn't get showcased. All the SRI team that put it on in the background, without them doing what they do, it just wouldn't happen. The Quatermass team as a whole, they know how proud I am, and especially Mike for putting up with me. I think our relationship can be akin to Verstappen and GP. It's very much that married couple, and we do talk to each other in that same way when we're racing as well. So I think if you heard us in what's he'd be like, these guys don't like each other, we love each other. So really big shout out to him. It means the world to me having him in the car, the cockpit, you know what I mean, in my ear when I'm in the cockpit. And finally, to my beautiful darling wife, because again, if she didn't let me come racing, you wouldn't get to speak to me. I don't know, she heard it last week, so I'm saying it this week so I don't get a thump.
Oh, brilliant. Well, with that, Andy, it's been a pleasure as always to have you join me in the interview room. Congratulations on your drive today. It may have been a race against fuel rather than time, but you're able to get to the end. A 6th place means you stay right in the hunt for a top 5 this season, and we'll see you at Road America next week to see whether you can get one up on your rivals in the Aston Martin. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you very much, Paul. See you later.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from our final interview of today, Andy Chell in the Evo class. A lovely balance of interviews there. 2 pros, 2 Evos, and ending with a driver who had to give us a very different complexion of a race, which was a race all about they didn't put the right fuel in the car, and Andy putting his hand up immediately and saying it was his error, whereby he didn't set the right fuel, and therefore he had to find a way to get the car to the finish. But grateful to have Mike Barber on the pit wall, talking in his ear and saying exactly what did he need to do in order to make sure he had the fuel to find the finish, and even reminding him towards the very end you still got fuel to save. Talking as well about the dynamic there of fuel saving versus wanting to fight, particularly when it was so close between himself and his Evo peers, but having to release the places in the end just because he hasn't got the fuel to fight for them, otherwise he'd be forced in the 2-stop. A very frustrating situation to be in, but to be fair to Andy, handling it very well. Now he looks forward to Road America in a car that should be quick there, but as he mentioned, the only problem is 3 out of the top 6 drivers in the Evo class are all in Aston Martins, so it's going to be the person, well, it's all going to be about the person who's the best in the Aston, seeing whether they can stay ahead, presuming of course it is the best car to be in, and why their rivals doesn't show them all up. But we will wait and find out in a week's time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. And a huge thank you, as always, to all 4 of our interviews who have joined us. Starting off, of course, with a very emotional win and an interview for Peter Duke for DC Motorsport in the Pro class. We then heard from the Evo classes Stuart Rice of Phoenix Racing Red, who put together a brilliant 5th place finish there and enjoying all the fighting, before coming to the sister team driver from the Pro class of Phoenix Racing Green's Klaas Vellen, who talked about his trials and tribulations in chasing down the top 10 in a Corvette he's coming to love. And we just heard back in the Evo class and Quatermass Motorsports, Andy Chell was 6th place finish in the end. Unfortunately, he was handicapped by the fuel saving situation, as always he might have been able to chase down a top 5 if not a podium. But a huge thank you to all 4 of our drivers for an interview. Indeed, well done on their results, and we look forward to plenty more interviews at Road America in a week's time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the SimRacing International community or how you can be on the grid here at SRI, well, for all that and more, we recommend you join our official Discord. Link available at the bottom of the screen, that's the invite link. get on the grid, join us today. You will not find a more friendly and helpful sim racing community based out of the UK, but available to everybody around the world, whether you're from the United States of America all the way through to Japan. There is a place for you on the grid and in the community at SimRacing International. And if you do want to get on the grid, we have got 4 series currently ongoing. Started off with what you've been tuning into today, the Thursday evening GT3 Championship Season 10, as proudly sponsored by Trophy AI and also Sim Coach. But if you're looking perhaps for some racing that's in the GT3 class, but more towards the weekend, we do have the weekly UK Sim Racing Community Sunday GT3 series, which continues to go on strong, currently in its 16th season. If you're looking for something on the weekend, but you're looking for something for a multi-class vibe, well, of course, we do have the America's GT Challenge that runs on alternating Sunday evenings, and that is GT3s and GTEs. Yes, that's right, I didn't misspeak. The old GTEs that were replaced by the GT3s joined the GT3s on the grid, and it sounds like a recipe for disaster, but it's actually been a recipe for some of the finest racing we have ever seen here at SimRacing International. But if you don't want to pay to be on the grid, perhaps you're looking for something a lot more casual, well, of course, we do have our free-to-join practice league, which does run on Tuesday evenings and Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. But there's something for everybody here at SimRacing International, and just join the Discord and you can be part of the story. But at this moment, we'd also like to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include Trophy.ai, Carme, More Than Technology, Sim Coach, where you unlock your true potential as a sim racer, the GP2 Group, and last but not least, Motorsport UK's esports division. And a big thank you to them for continuing to recognise us here at Sim Racing International as a recommended community, and we do hope that relationship continues well into 2026. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we continue the story of Split B's Season 10 in the Sim Racing International GT3 Championship, because next time, round number 9 awaits on Thursday, the 20th of November 2025, and it will be the final of our rounds in the US of A. Our triple header will come to a close, and it will be in the Countryside Classic Circuit of Road America in the state of Wisconsin, where we will see who is going to roar the loudest in the pursuit of the title fight. In Pro, it looks as though Stephen Codman has one hand on the title, and it may just be a formality for him to wrap things up with a round to spare at Road America, unless he has a difficult day and everybody's able to leap on top of it. Meanwhile, in the Evo class, well, Steve Rubino today definitely made a huge statement with a top 10 finish overall and a class win that said to everybody else, you've still got some catching up to do. But can anybody catch him at Road America on home soil? Well, for all that and more, ladies and gentlemen, you have to tune in next time. But until then, we have been Sim Racing International. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, like our drivers, remember to stay on track. Good night.
For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.